Thank you very much. Broadcasting, good afternoon. Welcome to the Senate Committee on Government Affairs. Thanks to everybody who is joining us online. We appreciate your participation. Members, please remember to mute your microphones when you're not speaking. And will the Secretary please call the roll?
Vice Chair Orenshaw.
Here.
Senator Goycochea.
Here.
Senator Neal.
Here.
Senator Hansen.
Here.
Chair Dondero Loop.
Here. And thank you very much. All members are present, so thank you very much. Just a reminder that you can find any information about any of our meetings on our legislative website, which is NELIS, NELIS, and that will give you all the ways to view and participate with our meetings. You can send your information in via written testimony. You can go online to a opinion poll, and you can also be on the phone line and do public comment. Today, the committee will be hearing several bills, and we'll also hold a work session. We're going to take our bills slightly out of order. We're going to start with Senate Bill 254. And so I thank you very much, Senator Neal, for your flexibility. And we will open the hearing on Senate Bill 254. Go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, number one, thank you for hearing both of my bills today. SB 254, I have a co-presenter on, and I also have NERC on for any questions related to the bill to help me out. So Professor Kendall is from the Boyd Law School. So I'm going to give a general introduction, and then he's going to go through a PowerPoint, and then I'm going to go through the bill, if that order is okay. Okay, so housing plays a critical role in providing stability for poor families. Even more so, it is a great stabilizer for ex-offenders. It is also critical upon the release of an ex-offender to make one of the first steps of identifying where they're going to live. A roof over your head not only creates stability, it creates a sense of independence that you are getting ready to move your life forward and have a different way of living after being released. Not having a roof over your head can create stress, depression, and is a sign of poverty. According to the Prison Policy Initiative report, incarcerated people are almost 10 times more likely to be homeless than the general public. And so before it's even broken down by race and gender and demographics, if they cannot find an apartment to live, they're more than likely to live in places such as hotels, motels, or just being one step away from homelessness. I encountered a group of women during the interim who were ex-offenders who could not find a place to live. The stories were so compelling that I found myself bringing this bill because one of the stories of the women, she had been released in 2014 and had not been able to get an apartment. Not in her name. When she was released, she got an apartment under her daughter's name because she was denied. She then had to, when she wanted to move to a better place, she got an apartment where her mother had to co-sign. And she has actually never had an apartment in her name as an individual in 7 years. And when I heard that story, I realized that there's an underground group of women and human beings that do not have a place to live, but yet we have given them freedom. SB 254 encompasses a lot. It encompasses policy that aligns us with HUD for fair housing, but the most important piece is Section 33, which deals with what I call allowing an ex-offender who has a criminal history to be able to rent an apartment without discrimination. And this particular language is of utmost importance to me because when I go and I've been asked to speak at like Hope for Prisoners, I've been asked to speak at the women's prison. And when they have me speaking to these women who are involved in a workforce program, I'm speaking hope into them, but I've never once said, I sure hope you can find a place to live when you get out. And I didn't realize that this was part of the story that I was not aware of, that when they are released, they are finding themselves without a place to stay. And I think that the state of Nevada can remedy that and take a role in that. Because shouldn't you have the right, if you have obtained your freedom, to live like everyone else and to be able to live in an apartment and not have your prior history dictate where you have to stay? And so I wanted to make those opening comments because I have the awesome pleasure of having Professor Pindell, his expertise is in fair housing, who has been a part of this journey with me that I was on in the summer. And I want him to present his PowerPoint before I get into the bill, which will really help break down the status of what it means to have established housing as a fundamental right in Nevada. Mr. Pindell, Professor Pindell.
Thank you, Senator Neal, for that great introduction. My name is Nagai Pindell. I'm a professor at the William S. Boyd School of Law at UNLV. And for full disclosure, I am also a NERC commissioner, but today my remarks are not as a NERC commissioner, but as an individual and a professor at the law school. And as Senator Neal noted, I'll be speaking about the fair chance housing in Nevada, or not having criminal records considered as part of the rental decision. And I have a PowerPoint to share, which I will do right now. Okay. So my comments, I have three basic points to make in my comments. One is I want to highlight the shortage of affordable housing in Nevada. And as Senator Neal noted, the availability of housing for ex-offenders is critical to their reentry into the community. Second, I want to highlight the disproportionate impact of mass incarceration on communities and families of color. Third, I want to talk a little bit about the Fair Housing Act implications of the disproportionate impact of mass incarceration on communities of color. So we've had a lot of conversation in Nevada and in the legislative process of the session about access to affordable housing. There are many statistics I could show you. I just picked out this one to demonstrate the lack of affordable housing for extremely low income residents. And, you know, as we might expect, those leaving the prison system will be among people who have the most need, most critical need for housing, and will be among those of the lowest incomes. Nevada has only 18 affordable and available homes per 100 renter households, right? So there is a need for affordable housing at this level of income. The issue of mass incarceration is timely, and it's an issue that affects individuals of all incomes and all classes. So just this past week, I read Halfway Home, Race, Punishment, and the Effects of Mass Incarceration. Reuben Miller is a professor at the University of Chicago, and it's a terrific book that shows the social side of people attempting reentry into their communities. I wanted to highlight his story because he's someone with both understanding and means, yet he couldn't have his own brother who had a criminal record live with him in his housing because this professor lived in faculty housing. So a consequence of his not being able to find adequate housing for his brother upon parole was that his brother spent an extra 4 to 6 months in jail while he tried to find adequate housing for him. As the Halfway Home book indicates, there are 19.6 million people that live with a felony record. 1/3 of them are Black, and 1 in 3 currently living Black American men have felony records. So we get a sense of what mass incarceration means to communities of color. It then becomes an issue of racial equity when we talk about fair chance housing. So it is both reintegrating into communities and facing those barriers of the disproportionate inequities because of mass incarceration and racial bias in housing. And then just to highlight some of that disproportionate effect, even though people of color make up only 37% of the US population, they make up 67% of the prison population. So there's a community that is disproportionately affected by the criminal justice system, and therefore, after having served their time, they face additional barriers upon trying to re-enter the community. So this disproportionate impact has been recognized by HUD as well. So that African Americans and Hispanics are convicted and incarcerated disproportionately. And so they're going to have special challenges in seeking shelter after release from prison. And so this is a quote from HUD Office of General Counsel. And I've got a few more slides that follow this theme. And so a criminal record is not a protected characteristic under the Fair Housing Act, but the Fair Housing Act is concerned with either disproportionate impact or intentional discrimination. So if the burden falls more often on renters or other housing market participants of one race or national origin over another, that can give rise to discriminatory effects liability. And then, as I said before, in addition to being concerned with disproportionate effect or discriminatory effect, HUD also is concerned about intentional discrimination that arises out of using a criminal record for housing decisions. And last, I think the summary statement, summarizes and encompasses HUD's approach in this area. That is, they recognize that when individuals are released from prisons and jails, their access to affordable housing is crucial. But we have current barriers to access to affordable housing that hopefully this bill will address. And then finally, fair chance housing is just good policy. And some of these points repeat the senator's points, that it can increase racial equity. Maybe more importantly, we keep families together. This is an issue that not only affects the ex-offender, but also their siblings and their children and their spouse. So the ability for these families to stay together. Stable housing is the center of a strong community and would lower the risk of individual reoffense. People have paid their debts to society. And last, we've seen over the past year with COVID that access to stable shelter is now a public health issue and a critical response to our response to COVID. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So, Madam Chair, I do have two amendments on. No, I have one amendment on SB 254, and then I will go through that as I go through the bill, but I don't know, and then we can just open ourselves up for questions. Is that okay?
Yes, Senator, please go ahead.
I feel like I'm on a roller coaster, Senator Dunn.
I understand. We've been through lots of meetings today and shut Zooms and opened Zooms, so we're with you.
All right. Okay. So SB 254. So I'm going to take chunks of the bill because there's a lot in this bill, but it will make sense. So sections 2 through 31 and sections 40 through 44. They have a purpose, and the reason why I'm lumping them in is because HUD has basically, NERC is trying to get in compliance with HUD there has been a longstanding agenda that NERC trying to be able to enter into certain agreements with the U.S. HUD department. And in order to do that, NERC has to change. There was a need to change a lot of the law in Nevada in order to update and be in substantial compliance with HUD. So the sections 2 through 31 and the sections 4 through 40 allow this relationship to exist, where HUD then becomes a partner with NERC. And in return for doing these changes and enacting these changes, HUD will get some support from HUD financially in terms of investigators, in-house counselors. And I decided to go ahead and do this language, number one, because NERC is underfunded. Number two, additional investigators for NERC would help them immensely within the fair housing area. Three, the idea that they would be able to get additional support in terms of in-house counsel is totally immeasurable by simply updating our Nevada law so we could be in compliance. There are actually 35 other states and the District of Columbia who successfully partnered with HUD to investigate and resolve housing discrimination cases on a state level. This bill, or those sections, let me be clear, those sections 2 through 31 and 40 through 44 help to move us in that direction so that we can be in what they consider substantial compliance in order to build a relationship so that we can enter into certain agreements with HUD for assistance. So that's super important. Now, the biggest section of the bill, which is related to the presentation that Professor Pendell and I gave as my introduction, is Section 33. Section 33, this is the portion of the bill where I am seeking to establish in Nevada that ex-offenders should not be discriminated against for their background. There is an exception in the bill. So we currently have exceptions under our law that, if you have sex-related crimes or sex offender, there are different rules that individuals who've been charged with those crimes play by. This Section 33 does not include those individuals. It actually excludes them. I had excluded them because, number one, another senator asked me to. And so, I agreed. And there was just general consensus, even with the offender group that I had spent time with over the summer, that this was something that they felt they wanted to exclude as well. And so I started to work with the Apartment Association around this issue. Over the summer, we had a series of Zooms and a series of conversations to try to find a middle ground. And I pretty much stated that I was bringing this bill because, number one, I felt strongly about Section 33 and the right for individuals to be able to have a home. What I found from and why the section was driven and why it deals with arrest and background checks and conviction record is because individuals were explaining and putting in the telling me that they were applying to 2 and 3 apartments. They were getting triple and double deposits. They weren't able to ever get an apartment in their own name. They had to become roommates, or they were couch surfing. They were doing different things, all simply because they could not find a place to live because of their criminal background. And so Section 33 really lays out what is included around how they should be treated and how it should be looked at. I'm doing a high-level overview because I figure I'm just going to get questions. In addition to Section 33, I have amendments to a portion of Section 33 where if you go to Section 33, sub 2C, my amendment provides an exemption that applies to owner-occupied property only if the property is less than 5 individual units. I have been asked to make sure that it only applies to, it doesn't apply to units that are 4 or less. In Section 33, I put in a clarification around short-term rentals and weekly rentals. And the reason why I put that amendment in for Section 33, which has my criminal background check, is because what I found out in the process of talking to these women who were ex-offenders or formerly incarcerated, they were telling me that there's a 1989 ordinance that's been in play that basically upon going into an apartment, it's going into an apartment or even a weekly, police can come in and run a warrant check. So they can run a warrant check and then you have signed a lease. Well, I'll use the budget weeklies as an example. So you've gone into a weekly, you paid, and then within 24 hours, a warrant check has been run on you. And the next thing you know, you have Metro knocking on your door for a warrant. And then you are arrested and basically removed from your housing because of a warrant. I wanted to put parameters around this behavior because if you have a warrant for a murder or something like that, this bill doesn't even touch that. We're not even dealing with that issue. But if you have a warrant for traffic tickets, which has been a historical thing we've been trying to remedy in this building, which means you have a misdemeanor, you had a series of traffic tickets, and then you have a warrant, and next thing you know, you go into a weekly because that is the only place you can rent. A warrant check is ran on you, and then all of a sudden you're denied housing. Well, you're eliminated from your housing, you're in jail, and then there is no housing or money for you to go back to this weekly. What I found out was that there is an actor who consistently does this to individuals, a company that consistently does this to individuals in Las Vegas, meaning as soon as they get in, they run the warrant check, and then the person is pretty much without a home. The apartment association said that they don't do this practice at all, although it's been a 1989 ordinance, but I decided in Section 33 to put parameters around that behavior. If there's a warrant for a felony, you will be removed from wherever you are. If you are engaging in behavior on the property after you have signed your lease and you are doing something such as, nuisance, doing things that fall out of what the apartment believes is good behavior, you can be removed from your apartment. What I am trying to deal with is the initial application when you are trying to get in and your criminal background is being used against you so that you cannot lease an apartment. The bill does not apply to if you have a single family residence and you are renting out your apartment, your little casita or part of your house, you're not even covered in this bill. Because I felt, number one, it's private ownership, even though there's private ownership there, but you can determine who you want to live in your single family residence. You can determine who you want to live in your duplex. But when it comes down to the limited housing that we do have and individuals actually trying to seek commercial apartments, they need to be able to find an apartment. We know that when an ex-offender leaves, they have limited money. So their next bet is probably to try to find an apartment, try to room with an apartment, get a roommate, but not necessarily they're in a financial capacity to buy a house. And so we don't want them to be homeless. We don't want them living on the street, and we want them to start their new life. And so that was the impetus of Section 33 and my amendments to 33. There are additional pieces in the amendment where I am carving out source of income. And the reason why you see the amendment where it says Assembly Bill 317, which is a current bill that's on the Assembly side, is because that bill, I was planning on doing source of income, but that bill was supposed to get a hearing, and so far it has not received one. And so source of income was very important to me because the voucher system that's currently in play within this Clark County is very important to make sure that the source of income is not discriminated against, because individuals who seek vouchers, typically Clark County will give a voucher if you need rapid rehousing, and that rapid rehousing will then place you either in a short-term rental. It will either apply to an apartment where you are seeking to basically get your first month rent or your last month rent covered. And so I wanted to make sure that there was no discrimination. Also, it applies to when you have source of income and you have a voucher and you're trying to get into Section 8 housing. So there's a lot that I just said. And the bill is an omnibus bill that covers a lot of different things. But the purpose of this was to open the doorway so that individuals can actually have a place and a roof. And my first goal was to try to combat homelessness. My second goal was to combat homelessness and an ex-offender. And third, to try to make a fair place for individuals who we have decided are not in the prison system and that have a capacity to actually live in a place that they can feel proud of and be independent. And with that, Madam Chair, I will just have to open myself up for questions, because to get into all of this bill will take us all day. So I'll just have to take questions.
Okay, and we don't have all day. We do have a few hours left, but we so appreciate it. And committee, with that, questions, please. Senator Neal, you're always the first one that asks the question, so we're kind of stuck here. Let's see. Questions. All right, I will ask one. I don't see any hands up right this minute, but I will ask one. Senator Neal, first of all, am I correct that the proposed conceptual amendment is this one prepared by you? Is that the one that we're using? Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. All right, and then I know you just did this, but will you go over the eviction of a tenant part again for me?
Okay. So in regards to if they can be evicted after they put in their housing application?
What I was looking at in the amendment was provide that landlords of rentals described in item number 1 above may not evict a tenant for a misdemeanor unless the misdemeanor occurred at the rental property.
Yes. So what that's getting at is, so on the initial application, you cannot use the misdemeanor as a denial, but if after they are settled in the apartment and then they commit a misdemeanor and it is in violation of the rules of the apartment, you can be evicted. That's what that means. That's what my intent is, right? I don't want the pretext to be, you've committed a crime, you have a criminal history, not committed a crime, but you have a criminal history, so I will not rent to you. But if you do an act that violates the rules of the apartment and the apartment manager calls you out and they find out I don't know why anybody would do this, but graffitied your apartment, and that's a grounds for eviction, then you can be evicted. I'm not infringing upon the rules post signing the lease and move in.
Thank you. All right. And then would you, because I'm not familiar with, you've referenced Assembly Bill 317 in this amendment, and because I'm not familiar and we haven't heard that bill yet, could you just tell us maybe a snippet of what that bill is about?
Yes. So it prohibits discrimination in housing and certain other transactions involving real property on the basis of source of income. It requires a person who refuses to rent a dwelling to a prospective tenant to provide to the prospective tenant a written notice that states the reason for the refusal. And then it also has a penalty. And I'll try to break this down a little bit more. So in vouchers, there are 4 types of housing situations. There's the rapid rehousing that happens. There could be a Section 8 voucher where you're allowed to go and rent. And there is, I'm looking for my notes. But there's 4 types. Just 1 second. It's like I'm missing a single piece of paper that I just had. Okay, let me just 1 second here, because I have this written out already. Okay, so there's 4 types. So there's 1 type, there's subsidy only, which is defined as a permanent housing subsidy with no supportive services attached. And then there is the 2nd type, where you have a temporary housing voucher for up to 24 months, which potentially could offer supportive services. And then you have this 3rd, community-based rapid rehousing, which is defined as the temporary rental assistance. And so basically that kind of rapid rehousing is the kind of voucher that you can receive in order to go in and potentially get into a weekly for 2 weeks, so you're stabilized, and then you have a time period to then help you find an apartment. And then you have the other type where you get the transitional housing, which allows you to get supportive services, and maybe you're seeking housing from a particular place. This particular bill is trying to prevent the voucher that you get from being discriminated against just because of the source in which it comes from. Her bill really spells out the different categories, but it tries to create an equal playing field for individuals who have a voucher, and that is their source of, I guess, money in order to try to find a place to live. I can give you an example of somebody who I helped that had a voucher, if that will help to...
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. So I had a young woman. She was about 27 years old, and that's young. She had 3 children, and she was actually homeless. I was asked to assist her in trying to find an apartment. She went to Help of Southern Nevada in order to get assistance. And she then received a voucher, and then she received a list of apartments that she could then go to, which were moderate income that would fit her range for her income. She would take the vouchers to the different apartments, and there were a series of denials that she received having that voucher and not being able to get in. At one point, I actually intervened because she was pregnant at the time with 2 small children, and there's another part to the story. So she went in, she finally got an approval. There was an apartment like off of South Jones that basically said they would take her voucher. They would apply it to her first and second month rent. She was literally only able to find a 1-bedroom apartment, even though she had 2 kids and was pregnant, but that was what she could afford. And that was the apartment that finally said yes. Then when I started to help her, I actually contacted the apartment manager, and they came back with a denial for her. But the denial was based on not the voucher, which was being denied in other places, but because she had a solicitation charge. And because of that scenario, that was the impetus for this bill, because she encompassed not only the discrimination against the source of income, but the discrimination for her criminal background, because she had been guilty of a solicitation like 3 years ago. It was a fine, and then they wouldn't let her in. And I literally had to call the manager, talk them into giving her the apartment, because I explained to them, I said, not only did I help her get a Southern Nevada voucher, she has gone to 7 other apartments and she has not been able to rent anything. I have tried to help her get assistance through welfare and all of these different entities. I really, really need you to take a chance on this woman, and I need you to help her have a place to stay so that when she has this baby, she can actually have a roof over her head. And so I'm giving you that example because literally that is what I encountered. And that is why I was like, okay, I'm going to do a bill to try to make sure that, number one, I don't have to do this again, and that we have a space and for these kinds of situations and individuals who face these kinds of barriers, and we need to remove them out of the way, because there's nothing like being able just to know that you can put a key in the door and be safe. And before that point, she had been living with her father, and he was going to kick her out. And because he was like, I'm not taking care of grown people. And then they asked me to step in because she wasn't even my constituent, but they asked me to step in because they just felt I could navigate the system and try to help her.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that description, and thank you for that real life example. I think that helps. Committee, is there anybody else that has a question? Vice Chair Orenshaw, did I see you leaning in, or no? I can't hear you, sir.
A very quick question, Chair, if you have time.
Yes, please.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Senator Neal, for proposing this legislation. And I want to say hi to Professor Pindell, a former professor of mine at the William S. Boyd School of Law. Thank you for working together on this legislation. I'm looking at the amendment and the language about warrants. I just wonder, I really appreciate the language. I wonder if maybe someday in the future you might look at expanding to the felony warrants, just because some people may have a warrant out there and may not even know it. And of course, some are innocent, it could just be an accusation. I just wonder, I appreciate the work. I think it's great, but I just wonder if you might ever consider, either in this legislation or maybe in the future, looking at trying to expand that preclusion on warrants to include felonies or maybe certain nonviolent felonies.
Thank you for the question, Senator Orenshaw. Not this session. I don't need any more trouble.
Fair enough.
Senator Orenshaw, will you describe for me exactly where you're looking?
Yes, Chair. I am looking at on Nellis, the proposed conceptual amendment proposed by Senator Neal, and I am looking down at, it is subparagraph 4.
Okay, I see it now. I was looking in the bill and I see where you are. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, that was, Chair, it was supposed to have been in the bill and it was a drafting error. And so I had to do a conceptual.
Okay, thank you very much. Additional questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none. Senator Neal, any other discussion, or would you like to go ahead and go to support, opposition, and neutral?
I would like for you to go to support, opposition, and neutral. I want to say thank you, Chair. I am completely frazzled. It's like the first day of my life.
You know what? This has been an interesting exercise in patience all the way around. So I understand because I have every committee on the same day. So we will go to support broadcasting. When you're ready, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support of SB 254, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 988, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last 3 digits of 988, please begin. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Emily Paulson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Nevada Homeless Alliance. Overall, we are in support of SB 254, as this bill will remove barriers to housing access that cause housing instability and prolong episodes of homelessness. We are in support of this bill because Nevada is one of only a few states in the nation that does not yet have a HUD, Qualified Fair Housing Assistance Program, and SB 254 will ensure that the Nevada Equal Rights Commission has the tools and authority needed to ensure federal and state fair housing laws are adequately enforced and Nevadans are protected from housing discrimination. We are in support of this bill because it will make source of income a protected class. Under current Nevada law, renters who are reliant on housing choice vouchers, rental assistance, disability income, or other benefits may currently be denied housing based on their legal source of income. Adding source of income as a protected class in Nevada fair housing law will protect vulnerable populations from housing instability and homelessness by removing discriminatory barriers to housing. 19 U.S. states have source of income protections in their state fair housing laws, and over 100 municipalities across the nation have passed source of income ordinances. Identifying landlords who accept vouchers and rental assistance and who do not discriminate on the basis of prior justice involvement has become an extraordinarily burdensome and costly task for homeless service organizations and local governments in Southern Nevada. There are many families and households lingering in homelessness today because of these barriers. This bill will help us overcome this hurdle and allow our homeless service system to direct scarce funding and manpower to providing essential services and less time and energy on the challenge of finding cooperative landlords. Requiring property owners and landlords to move past the practice of automatic denials to voucher holders or individuals with other legal sources of income will introduce them to the benefits of renting to individuals with these stable sources of income. In a recently published study by the Urban Institute, housing vouchers are found to have helped landlords and tenants weather the pandemic because they guarantee a portion of the rent will be paid by the housing authority, regardless of the tenant's circumstances. We are also in support of the legislative intent Senator Neal expressed in her presentation about fair chance housing. Ending record-based exclusions is essential to fair housing. Using conviction records is not actually a useful way to determine a person's trustworthiness or how good of a tenant they may be, and it only entrenches the structural inequities in the criminal justice system that have unjust and disproportionate effects on Black communities. In fact, in 2016, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development issued guidelines that, given the racial disparities of the criminal legal system, housing policies that include a blanket ban on people with conviction records violate federal fair housing laws. However, the clarifying amendment on Section 33 significantly restricts who the fair chance protections are applied to by restricting it to households in receipt of rental assistance. While this will certainly help our homeless service system rehouse people, it doesn't protect against the housing instability many Nevadans with a history of justice involvement will face in accessing housing. It doesn't provide protections for Nevadans with a stable income who don't need rental assistance and just need landlords to stop discriminating on them and looking at their prior justice involvement as a qualification for rent. Overall, we are in support of the bill for the purpose of advancing NERC's powers to enforce fair housing and for protecting people against source of income discrimination. And we think many improvements can be made to the fair chance aspects. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 938. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Ariel Edwards, ArielEdwards, on behalf of the City of North Las Vegas. We would like to thank Senator Neal for bringing this bill before the Senate Committee on Government Affairs today. The city appreciates the opportunity to testify in support of SB 254. Fair housing is essential to fostering a healthy community that thrives. We know that fair housing can significantly reduce the rate of recidivism and aid in healthy, thriving communities. The intent of this bill tracks with the priority of the North Las Vegas Jail to promote equity and opportunity through rehabilitation and reintroduction to society. And people who have already paid their debts to society should have an opportunity to have a dwelling of their own for them and their families. We know that these discriminatory practices disproportionately affect Black and Brown communities the most. It has been long overdue, but surely it's time we move on from these racist practices and ensure that housing, dignity, and respect is paid to all. We strongly urge the committee to support SB 254. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits of 080. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hi, Jim Hoffman, Hoffman, representing Nevada Attorneys for Criminal Justice. NACJ supports SB 254. The issue of housing for formerly incarcerated people is key for preventing recidivism. I would ask you to think about how this works in practice. People who worked hard and got clean have to move into weekly motels that are rife with drug sales. People who are convicted of prostitution offenses are pushed back into dependence on their pimps. Formerly homeless people get pushed back onto the streets. The lack of housing is setting people up to fail. We want to give people the space to turn their lives around, and housing literally provides that space. Lack of access to housing is bad for these people and bad for society as a whole. And I want to note that NACJ also supports the original bill's ban on any landlord using these background checks and would welcome this reform being made in a future session. But even with the amendment, this is still a strong reform and NACJ supports it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits of 956. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Chair. For the record, this is Liz Davenport, Lizdavenport, on behalf of the ACLU of Nevada in support of SB 254. Thank you, Senator Neal, for bringing this bill. The ACLU supports reforms that end structural discrimination. Overrepresentation of people of color in this justice system is a result of discriminatory criminal justice policies that disadvantage people of color and result in negative impacts to life long after incarceration. Specifically in Nevada, Black people make up only 9% of the population and yet account for more than 30% of those in prison. These numbers are similar for other people of color. People with arrest and conviction records are routinely blocked from accessing housing because of their records. Housing is a crucial element for a successful re-entry, providing stability, shelter, and building community. We want formerly incarcerated people to succeed and contribute to the community when they re-enter. Eligibility restrictions to housing, especially affordable housing, create undue hardships that deter the stability and success of formerly incarcerated individuals. Many times, this can result in becoming homeless or being separated from families and children. The ACLU supports removing punitive restrictions to housing accessibility and supports SB 254. Thank you, and that concludes my testimony.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 847. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last three digits of 847. Please press *6 now to unmute yourself. Thank you. Please begin.
Yes, my name is Asha Clark. That's A-S-H-A. First name, last name Clark, C-L-A-R-K. Thank you, committee, for hearing this bill today. I am in support of SB 234. I also want to thank Senator Neal for bringing this bill to the forefront. I am one of the individuals who had organized the meeting with the young ladies who told their stories and were vulnerable that day on the call, letting you know their past experiences. I also was one of those ladies who shared my obstacles and barriers and shared my story on that day, how even having full-time employment and meeting 3 times the income, but it was such barriers and obstacles for me to gain a place of residence. It took me over a year and a half, almost 2 years. I'm now in my own place, in my own name. I'm not couch surfing anymore. I don't live with anyone. I'm not roommating with anyone. And that's just a really, really good feeling, especially after being in and out of the system for over 15 plus years. My last conviction in incarceration was 2011, and just being actually able to re-enter back into society. And I thank you for being able on that call that day and seeing views from both sides of the field with the Home Association and personally impacted individuals. I am in support of this bill because housing is a human right. Housing brings stability. With stability brings motivation and desire to thrive. With a desire to thrive brings purpose and determination. When you have stability, you have a fair chance at success. With a fair chance at success, you have unlimited possibilities to continue to thrive and emerge into the person we, as being a formerly incarcerated individual and speaking on behalf of those women today, want to be, not who we once were trying not to be. Having stability gives us morals, standards, principles, and values that at one point, for a person that's formerly incarcerated or a person who has never been given a fair chance, really could care less about having morals, principles, values, and standards. My past doesn't define who I am today or who I am constantly striving to be. All I'm asking is to be given a fair chance. Thank you, committee.
Thank you so much, and congratulations on moving forward. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 346. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, for the record, my name is Reverend Michael Willoughby, Michael Willoughby. I am the technical director for Battleborn Progress. Thank you for allowing me to be here today, and extremely proud to stand with Senator Neal and the rest of the testimony in support of this legislation. I'm in a unique position today. About 25 years ago, I was homeless myself, and I am extremely lucky to be where I am today because of the grace of good people. And so anything that we can do to help avoid the cycle of exploitation that you've heard about, it is nearly impossible to get out. People are not choosing to be there. We must do what we can when we get the chance. And everybody here today has a chance to do something to impact the lives positively of the most vulnerable among us. I was there. I was lucky enough to make it out, to be here today. to remind you of your duty, your moral imperative to act on behalf of the people who need it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 161. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, for the record, my name is Carla Ramirez, KarlaRamirez. I'm an organizer with Planned Parenthood and a community member. Planned Parenthood Votes Nevada is a member of the Nevada Housing Justice Alliance and supports SB 254 because Nevadans should have access to housing regardless of their criminal history. Using conviction records to determine a person's trustworthiness as a tenant only deepens the structural inequities in the criminal justice system, which already negatively and disproportionately impacts the Black community. SB 254 will impact more than just people with convictions. Nearly half of the children in the United States have parents who have been convicted of a crime, which makes housing discrimination based on criminal records a reproductive justice issue. Not only this, but a lack of access to housing has consequences on a person's health and access to medical services. Planned Parenthood Votes Nevada urges you to support SB 254. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
If you've recently just joined us, we are currently in support of SB 254. To testify in support, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 422, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. My name is Tiara Moore, Tiara Moore, Moore. I am the Housing Justice Organizer with Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada. Here in support of Senate Bill 254. When I was 20 years old, I was forced into a plea deal if I wanted to return home to my children. I was attacked, violated, and assaulted by my children's father after him almost ending my life. I was arrested and charged with aggravated domestic battery, which is a Class C felony and a non-expungable or sealable felony. This violent felony has followed me for the past 17 years. I'm now 37 years old, and this happened when I was 20. I had never been arrested. I had no prior record, but I was forced into a plea deal for defending myself. I have been denied housing. I have been denied shelter, and I have also been denied employment due to this felony. I was never given a second chance after this happened. My children have also been impacted by housing instability. While we believe there should be exemptions to the ban on background checks, SB 254, it is an important first step to address housing discrimination in the state. We must do everything we can to provide members of the community like myself a second chance and an opportunity to create stability for our families. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 419, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Chair Dondera Loop and committee members. For the record, my name is Benjamin Challinor. That's BenjaminChalllinor. I'm the Policy Director for Faith in Action Nevada, and we are here in support of Senate Bill 254. We would like to thank Senator Neal for bringing this extremely important piece of legislation. Plain and simple, criminal history should not be a deterrent in attaining and securing affordable and safe housing. Stable and affordable housing is an important component in reducing civism and allowing people to provide for themselves and for their families. Additionally, as we know, our criminal justice system is disproportionately affects Black, Indigenous, and people of color. With SB 254, we'll be able to put those with prior criminal history on a better foot forward to re-enter. We'd also like to applaud Senator Neal for the conceptual amendment including language from AB 317. The language looks to protect those who are trying to find housing, who use housing vouchers, disability, or who have housing vouchers, disability income, and other government assistance from being discriminated against. It's an important step forward to making sure we are able to house as many folks as we can, as housing is a right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 771. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
My name is Leslie Turner, LESLIETURNER. And I'm with PLAN and the Mass Liberation Project and as well as the Vegas Freedom Fund. The intersection between housing and mass incarceration is profound. For instance, we could have emptied the city jail here in Las Vegas this past summer during the pandemic, where 100% of the population were incarcerated for misdemeanors. Yet a large majority of those people had nowhere to go except to an overwhelmed courtyard, which was already housing people in chalked boxes on the ground in the parking lot at the Captioning field. We saw this intersection in the prison system when, again, during a pandemic, when we should have been thoughtfully figuring out ways to decrease the prison population, instead had over 200 people who were granted parole still sitting in the NDOC because they had nowhere to be released to. Officials ultimately voting to keep them incarcerated because it would have been an added burden to release them to their owed freedom without housing. Simultaneously, it is a crime for people without homes to sleep on certain sidewalks, thus thrusting them in and out of county-level jails and facilities. People who serve their sentences and are released not on parole often cannot find adequate housing because their backgrounds are used against them. It is a never-ending cycle of redlining and the continued consequences of incarceration. If you expect people to leave prisons and become so-called productive members of society, it's important that they are able to have a roof over their heads. That should be the first thing before getting a job, before doing anything else, because that lays the foundation for stability. If we want to eradicate not only systemic racism, but also the consequences of systemic racism, we must start looking at housing and create policy as well as new resources. Housing should be for everyone. Every single person should have shelter at the very least. As a society, we have to start taking steps to get there. I'm in support of this bill because this bill will help people in my community. I hope that we can expand it at sometime in the future. I also support NERC being expanded and having the ability to investigate housing discrimination here in Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
For those of you that recently just joined us, we are currently in support of SB 254. To testify in support, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you very much. Can we go to opposition, please?
To testify in opposition of SB 254, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits of 259, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Terry Moore, TerryMoore. I'm a practicing attorney here in the state, and I primarily represent property managers and owners of approximately 25,000 apartments and single-family homes throughout northern and southern Nevada. We're opposed to Section 33 of SB 254 for a number of reasons. And first off, while the bill is a well-intentioned attempt to address discrimination in housing, and many of its provisions are laudable and should be adopted, Section 33 takes the matter simply too far and puts Nevada's tenants at risk. Enacting a law that prohibits housing providers from being able to conduct criminal background checks on a potential renter unnecessarily exposes other tenants to potential danger and also exposes housing providers to considerable liability. As it's worded and applied to the vast majority of Nevada's housing providers, Section 33 would make it discriminatory for a housing provider to deny an applicant, regardless of a conviction, for any criminal conduct, and it does say any. And I would like to point out that the effect of Section 33 is that landlords would no longer have the ability to simply exercise the discretion of whether or not to determine whether to rent to somebody who was convicted of a murder or arson or drug trafficking or drug manufacturing or assault and battery or fraud. The carve-outs that were originally in the bill and that are now set forth in the proposed amendment also do not address these problems. In fact, the attempt to include AB 317's source of income language expands this bill's applicability and, in fact, renders the attempted limitations in the amendment almost meaningless. At this point, Section 33 also creates a conflict between Nevada law and the Fair Housing Act as it relates to specified drug crimes. The Fair Housing Act provides that landlords can consider whether somebody was convicted of a certain drug crime in evaluating whether or not to allow them to rent a dwelling that they have. This would actually say that they cannot do that, and that's in violation and puts us in contradiction with the Fair Housing Act. In short, Section 33 of the bill hurts Nevada's tenants by taking away their landlord's ability to appropriately evaluate and screen tenants. The Federal Fair Housing Act does not prohibit housing providers from appropriately considering criminal history information when making housing decisions, and neither should Nevada law. Thank you for your time, Chair, and members of the committee.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 662. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Chair and committee members, my name is Susie Vasquez, S-U-S-Y, V as in Victor, A-S-Q-U-E-Z, and I'm the Executive Director of the Nevada State Apartment Association. We stand in opposition to Senate Bill 254, but are committed to working with Senator Dina Neal. The Apartment Association started to work with Senator Neal last year. We participated in a roundtable and heard firsthand accounts from mostly formerly incarcerated women that struggled to find housing because of their criminal past. I personally have been impacted by people that I love who face the same situation. Unfortunately, criminal convictions carry consequences, and as an association, we owe a duty to our residents to ensure their safety. That is why our industry's best practices follow HUD's guidance from 2016, which is very clear on what direction communities should take to minimize disparate impact in housing. Such policies result in 1.5% of tenant screening denials resulting from criminal history. SB 254 goes too far. An outright ban on criminal background screening means Nevada would join 4 localities across our nation that have taken this extreme approach. The Washington State Legislature decided not to ban the box after hearing startling statistics of the consequences related to Seattle's Fair Chance Housing Ordinance. Those statistics were evictions tripled in 2 years for residents being evicted for committing crimes. Amenities started to disappear because of the theft and unsanitary conditions, and armed security now patrols most communities. The people who reside in the 160,000 units under our care deserve to feel safe at home. Finally, we do not have significant issues with source of income protections. We do, however, have significant concerns as it relates to one administrator of the largest voucher program and would like your assistance to remedy the barriers they create to housing. We urge you to oppose this entire piece of legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 213. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Greg Peek, and that is P-E-E-K, and I'm in Reno, Nevada. My family and I have been building apartments since 1959. We house more than 4,000 residents in northern Nevada, and I'm proud to do so. We've been a long-time part of this community. We share the goal and the well-intended goals of the legislation. Section 33 simply goes too far. Those people who have paid their price to society and are now law-abiding and productive citizens, they have a place in our communities. And as mentioned earlier, there is guidance out there under the Fair Housing Act, and I have provided that guidance to the committee. The guidance was issued by the Obama administration on April 4th, 2016. And I'm going to quote the summary of it. Policies that exclude persons based on criminal history must be tailored to serve the housing provider's substantial, legitimate, non-discriminatory interests and take into consideration such factors as the type of crime and the length of the time since conviction. That is a balanced approach to this issue of criminal convictions, to not allow landlords to conduct criminal background checks gives us the risk, as has been proven, gives us the risk of putting violent offenders into our communities, and that has been proven. Not all crimes are created equal. The balance must be. We must have balance and transparency. Violent crime conviction is not the same as marijuana possession conviction. Armed assault is not the same as solicitation. We must know, and the landlord must have discretion. I also sent to the committee Reno's crime-free multi-housing community program. Reno established the program in 2007, and in the program, it tries to address gangs and drug sales in communities. And what it does, and this is the City of Reno's program, it requires those of us who participate, and we proudly participate, to run background checks. It provides model application language that requires us to run background checks on people. And so the City of Reno recognizes the importance of a landlord's ability to evaluate an applicant's background. And again, we must take a look at whether that background is going to be a risk in our community, and if it's not a risk, if it is not a risk, a criminal background does not automatically disqualify them from living in a community.
Thank you.
This is a public safety issue. It's a very true public safety issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 786. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last three digits of 786. Oh, we just lost that caller. Caller with the last three digits of 786. Are you still in the queue? Please press *9 now. For those of you that just joined us, we are currently in opposition of SB 254. To testify in opposition, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no more callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much. So we'll go to neutral, please.
To testify neutral on SB 254, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits of 899, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Christine Hess, CHRISTINE, Hess, HESS, and I am the Executive Director for the Nevada Housing Coalition. Thank you for the opportunity to share our neutral position on SB 254 today. NHC is monitoring the bill and wanted to learn more through this first hearing. However, with the addition of source of income protection in Senator Neal's conceptual amendment, we're able to share our strong support for that component. Thank you, Senator Neal, for your leadership. We must mitigate barriers and support the opportunities for our more vulnerable and our working Nevadans to access our already limited supply of affordable housing. The source of income provisions of AB 317 that are added per the conceptual amendment are provisions on which the Nevada Housing Coalition has worked closely with various stakeholders. Currently in Nevada, landlords can refuse tenancy to housing applicants simply based upon the applicant's source of income, whether that's a housing voucher, Social Security, disability, or other public or adjudicated source of income. As mentioned earlier, 19 other states and the District of Columbia have enacted source of income protections. In fact, Nevada's own Clark County passed an emergency ordinance last August, renewed in January, to protect against source of income discrimination. These sources of income, like vouchers, are actually stable and benefit our landlords. Research released this month examined the amount of back rent owed by low-income tenants and found that 68% of low-income tenants with vouchers owe less than $1,000 in back rent, including those who owe none. This is also a racial and social equity opportunity for Nevada. 77% of Nevada Housing Choice voucher holders are female, head of households, and 39% of those are with children. Additionally, 69% of voucher holders in Nevada represent minority populations. When Housing Choice voucher holders cannot find landlords that will rent them, those federal dollars are lost to Nevada. Rental assistance supports working families. 51% of non-disabled working-age Nevada households receiving Department of Housing and Urban Development rental assistance include at least one worker. Finally, we do acknowledge concerns with the ability of intermediaries to sometimes do their part in this process efficiently, and the Nevada Housing Coalition pledges to support efficient processes associated with the source of income statute. Also noted in SB 254, the Nevada Equal Rights Commission is the agency already directed with handling housing issues. We support expanding the capacity of Nevada Equal Rights Commission, which will benefit Nevadans with housing issues and concerns like source of income discrimination. Thank you for your time this afternoon and consideration of this testimony.
Thank you. Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 847. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin. I'm sorry, I just lost that caller. Caller with the last three digits of 786. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin. Thank you. Please begin.
Hello, my name is Tiffany Colonel, LATIFFANY, I'm affiliate with Plan, and I'm a formerly incarcerated individual who has been impacted. There are struggles because I've never had an apartment, didn't know how to go about getting an apartment. I haven't worked that long, and when I did get a job and was able to get on my feet, there was so many hurdles I had to go through just to get the approval. It was very frustrating. And in the end, I owe more money than I was in debt at first, when I first got released from prison. And the resources in Nevada are limited, and there are so many hurdles and obstacles to go through to get help with any agency in Nevada. So being incarcerated for 7 years of my life, and I'm 33, it was hard to jump back into society and to get my mind focused to do the positive things because of all the hurdles. I just gave up, and I resulted back to being in criminal activity, falsifying documents to make it appear as I had it, when I didn't, because it was a requirement on an application. And that's my first thought, and that's not a good feeling because I felt like if all these stipulations wasn't a part of an application, and with the background that I have, my chances are slim to none, and I know that before I hit submit, and that's discouraging, very discouraging. And for the first time in my life, I was depressed for a whole year last year. And the apartment that I'm talking about was my very first one. It was with a woman that I thought I was going to marry that I met while I was incarcerated. It got bad to where I left the apartment that was in my name, and I went back to live with my mother. So I let her have the apartment because the lease was up, and she just skipped. And so there's all these funds and problems that I'm going through trying to do the right thing, and being incarcerated is just, a very a sealed sign and a delivered stamp on your body every time you go to do something, and I think some of the laws should be more lenient or not on there at all when you're doing the application, because Las Vegas has one of the most highest rates for homelessness, and a lot of people don't know that, and a lot of people are ashamed to talk about it, but you shouldn't be judged on what you've done. No one's perfect, and everybody has done something that they shouldn't have done. So what's so different about us being incarcerated versus someone else that wasn't incarcerated? So I just think we should be given a chance no matter who we are or what we've been through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And broadcasting, I do believe that was a dropped call in support. I'm not sure. Next caller, please.
Thank you. Yes, Chair, you are correct. Chair, you have no more callers neutral at this time.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you so much for your time and patience today. I'm Kara Jenkins. I am the administrator for the Nevada Equal Rights Commission, and we are neutral, but we're strongly encouraged by this bill. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here with us, Ms. Jenkins. Okay, with that, Senator Neal, closing comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to let Professor Pendel, and then I have a quick comment. It won't take long. Professor Pendel?
Thank you, Senator. And I just have 30 seconds or a minute's worth of comments. And I, of course, appreciate the concerns that were raised around safety. And just wanted to highlight a few things for us to consider. One is the bill 254 does contain provisions to evict tenants who commit crimes and lease infractions as tenants. We heard some statistics about the experience in Seattle, that evictions tripled after enactment of the Fair Chance housing law in Seattle. And I think that's a demonstration that landlords do have and do retain the power and ability to evict tenants who have become a problem while giving other tenants, like many of them that you heard in support of this bill in the call, a chance. It was mentioned that 1.5% of tenant screening is a pretty small number, so that many tenants aren't precluded from housing because of the tenant screening. And I might frame it the other way, which is because it's such a small number, let's again give these tenants who have paid their debt to society a chance to move forward with their lives. We heard from many of the supporters that criminal history is a poor proxy for future action. And then last, there are other ways to secure safety in our apartment buildings and housing rather than looking at criminal history. We've talked about evictions and the ability of landlords to evict, holding tenants accountable for lease provisions and other tools. So landlords would retain those traditional tools to keep their housing units safe. With that, I will turn it back to Senator Neal.
Thank you for that, Professor Pendel. And so, Madam Chair, I just wanted to really highlight a statement as well that was stated by one of the folks in opposition. Draw your attention, committee, to section 33 sub 2A and B. And in this particular provision, I did adopt federal language. I don't believe I'm in conflict. This provision, which is 42 USC 13663, 24 CFR 982553, 42 USC 13663 has the federal prohibitions, which are standard, because I wanted to make sure. I was very thoughtful about this bill. Drug-related criminal activity where the federal law has prohibited it it keeps that same provision, which it is prohibited. Violent criminal activity, that is a permissive prohibition, but I adopted it into this bill to make sure that Section 33 did not, and I repeat, did not apply to those to that federal law. So basically, in essence, what I did was say if there was any federal prohibition currently in place, I did not remove it with this bill, nor did I remove any federal or state prohibition that we had adopted in our statute, but I did give a place and a carve out around those things, which are in sections 33, 1, A, B, and C. Subsection 2 is everything where does not apply, not in. So I wanted to make sure that that was clear, that I was very thoughtful about safety. I was very thoughtful about what is federally prohibited, and thinking about the red flags that may come to someone's mind about having a person living next to them. But I think we have to consider that if you have paid your debt to society, where are you going to live? I mean, if you can't live in an apartment, I don't know where else you're going to live, because you don't necessarily have the money to go out and get a house and get a mortgage. So they have to start somewhere. And so I feel like this is the first step. And I want to say thank you, Chair, for the indulgence, for your patience with me. I super appreciate it. You're muted, Chair.
Apologies. And with that, I will close the hearing on Senate Bill 254, and I will open the hearing on Senate Bill 327, and I will welcome back Senator Neal again.
Thank you for that. And I believe Senator Dallas Harris.
I'm here.
Okay, yay. So Senator Dallas Harris will be co-presenting with this bill, SB 327, which is on hair discrimination. It also has another provision in there about promotion. But I will let Senator Harris kick it off with a personal story.
First, let me just thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator Neal, for allowing me to be here with you and being a part of this really, really important bill. I wanted to just speak a little bit about why I think this bill is so important to me. So I don't know if you all remember, but during the first special session, I had my hair braided kind of straight back. And I had my godmother braid my hair, as she has done many of times in my life. And when I called her up to ask her if she could braid me up so I could, be in good condition for the special session, the first thing that my godmother asked me was, "Are you allowed to have your hair like that?" And I thought to myself in that moment, if that doesn't exemplify why we need this bill, I don't know what does. There have been many of times in my life, in my godmother's life, in the women, the very, very strong Black women who have raised me, where they have felt that in order to be professional, in order to be acceptable, you got to straighten your hair. You have to make sure that your appearance complies with what your employer may expect of you, or you're not going to get that job. And while that is personal to me, I think these stories persist everywhere. It's probably impossible to calculate how many young African-American women going out there into the profession felt the pressure to straighten their hair when they went to the job interview, and maybe felt lucky and bold enough to come in with a natural hairstyle on day one after they had gotten the job, or after they're past their probation period, and felt that they could be themselves a little bit more. No longer in Nevada. We've got to stop that. No longer should anyone feel like they need to change the nature of their hair in order to fit in. in order to not get kicked out of school, in order to secure a job or to maintain that job. And that's what this bill is about. And so, again, thank you, Senator Neal, for allowing me to be here. And I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Senator Harris. And thank you for those comments. Chair, we have a series of presenters. We have a Dr. Wendy Green, who is a legal scholar around hair discrimination and the Crown Act, which has been passed in several states. It also has passed in our U.S. House of Representatives last year. We have Miss Delilah. I'm looking for the name. Is she on?
I am. Delilah Clay.
Delilah Clay, who will also present and tell a story as an attorney, right? And then we have a student, Miss it's Naika. Naika, help me with your last name. Balazaire, who is a teen who is going to tell her story, because the portion of the bill at the back deals with hair discrimination in schools. And I'm just going to say something really quick, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Green. But this bill is very important to me, just the same as Senator Harris's story. When I first came to the legislature, I think in 2013, I had braids, and I was told that it was not professional for me to have braids. And I felt really saddened by the comment, mainly because I had braids, number one, because it's cold up here, and I didn't want to have to wear my hair out every day in 25-degree weather, wet. And I felt that braids were a protective style that I had worn forever. And it was one that I felt allowed me to still wear my hair and not feel like I had to, don a wig or something. And I was literally told that it was unprofessional and that they didn't see me as professional as a second-year legislator having my braids. And it's not like my braids were unkept. They looked very nice. And that was just a story that I had to share because it impacted me. I'm a pretty strong person, but I took mental note of it. And when I finally got the opportunity and I was asked to bring this legislation, I was like, yes, and emphatically yes. So I will turn it over to Dr. Wendy Green.
Well, thank you so much, Chair Loop and Vice Chair Orenshaw, for the opportunity to speak to you all today or this evening, which is on the East Coast. And on behalf of SB 327, and many, many thanks to Senator Neal and Senator Harris for not only co-sponsoring this critical civil rights legislation, but sharing your very personal stories as it relates to race-based natural hair discrimination and the types of barriers and pressures that we often suffer on this ground. Again, I am Wendy Green. I'm a professor of law at Drexel University, Thomas R. Klein School of Law, and founder of the #FreeTheHair movement. For 13 years, I have published an authoritative body of legal scholarship on the social construction of race and the contemporary operation of racial discrimination, not only in the United States, but throughout the Americas and the Caribbean and even in other spaces around the world. I am the author of a forthcoming book, #FreeTheHair, Locking Black Hair to Civil Rights Movements. And as one of the nation's leading anti-discrimination law scholars specializing in grooming codes discrimination, I serve as a legal expert in civil rights cases challenging race-based natural hair discrimination in workplaces and schools, as well as a legal advisor and co-drafter of federal, state, and municipal level legislation like SB 327. So I have devoted my career to activating legal reforms like the legislation under consideration today, while enhancing public awareness around the harms of unchecked discriminatory grooming policies. For example, policies that denigrate African descendants' natural hairstyles as distracting, extreme, excessive, unkempt, and unprofessional, or demeaning directives like a Black woman was subjected to in New York being told by her store manager to remove her braids or otherwise lose her job because her braids were deemed too ghetto. Or like an Afro-Latina meteorologist who was told by a news watcher that she needed to change her naturally curly hair to something not so inward, iggory looking. Informed by these and other racial stereotypes, grooming policies are often enforced to deprive African descendants employment, education, housing, and access to public accommodations. African descendant boys and men are required to cut off their hair in order to maintain a job opportunity for which they are qualified, receive a high school diploma they have earned, and even participate in sporting competitions in which they rightfully advance. Similarly, when donning natural and protective hairstyles, African descendant women and girls are deprived employment, educational, and extracurricular opportunities, along with being subjected to heightened levels of scrutiny, resulting in greater levels of discipline in schools and workplaces. And notably, when it deals with Black women and girls, natural hair bands that, and again, maybe I should put some little context to this when we talk about natural hairstyles. What we're talking about are afros, locks, braids, twists, bantu knots. And so I just wanted to point that out. And when you tell us that we can't wear those types of hairstyles, especially as Black women and girls, what it really means is that it's either going to require us to cut off our hair, to cover our hair, or to wear our hair straightened. And a lot of people don't really understand what the latter means. The latter is usually achieved through toxic chemicals, extreme heat styling, wigs, and weaves, which are expensive and time-consuming to maintain. It is common to suffer through chemical burns while chemical relaxants are being applied to our hair and scalp, which are not only excruciatingly painful, but also severely damaging. Black women and girls often endure hair breakage, balding, as well as scalp disorders due to chemical relaxers, as well as wigs, weaves, and extreme heat being applied. Research also indicates potential correlations between hair straightening products that Black women and girls commonly use and their increased rate of developing uterine fibroids, hormone-related infertility, and more aggressive forms of breast and uterine cancer. Therefore, natural hair bands leave African descendant women and girls in a precarious catch-22. Either don your natural hair at the risk of lawfully being deprived of an employment or educational opportunity, or don straight hair at the risk of enduring consequential harm to your physiological, psychological, economic, and physical well-being. This harmful bind many Black women and girls find themselves is unfortunately lawful under federal jurisprudence due to what I call a hair-splitting legal distinction that federal courts have created. Shortly after the 1964 Civil Rights Act was enacted, federal courts adopted what is known as the Immutability Doctrine that limits the scope of legal protection against racial discrimination to discrimination on the basis of immutable racial characteristics, presumably like one's skin complexion. Applying this misguided doctrine, federal courts have repeatedly declared for now 40 years that when an employer denies an African descendant a job because she adorns an afro, the employer engages in unlawful race discrimination. However, the moment she twists, locks, or braids her afro and suffers adverse treatment on those grounds, the employer's discrimination is deemed magically lawful. It's no longer about race, and employers are free to discriminate against locks, braids, twists, and other types of natural and protective hairstyles. SB 327 ensures that this unjustifiable gap in federal civil rights protection does not exist in Nevada, redressing a pervasive form of racial discrimination that harkens back to the eras of racial slavery in this country and abroad. For nearly 4 centuries, like our skin color, African descendants' hairstyles resulting from our curly or coily hair texture have served as a marker of our racial identity and therefore a vehicle of racial enslavement, segregation, and subordination. Even in the 21st century, full enjoyment of one's freedom, personhood, and dignity remains connected to the texture of one's hair. Race-based natural hair discrimination is a common barrier to African descendants' employment and educational opportunities domestically as well as globally. In fact, as this hearing is transpiring today, high school students in London are protesting racial inequities in their high school and specifically demanding changes to school grooming policies that bar Black students from wearing afros and other natural hairstyles. Also, 2 Black students in Ghana are challenging their potential expulsion from school if they refuse to cut off their locks. One may say, what's the big deal? Just change your hair, just cut it off. Well, just as adorning a hijab is often an essential expression of many Muslim women's religious beliefs, for many African descendants, donning natural hairstyles is a critical feature of their racial identity or simply how their hair grows. This bill ensures clear protection of everyone's personhood by eliminating a common dilemma, being forced to choose between expressing a defining trait of one's racial identity or being deprived an equal educational opportunity or employment for which one is qualified. I thank Senator Neal and Senator Harris for their leadership in advancing this important civil rights legislation that does not afford special treatment, but rather equal treatment for all who experience racial discrimination on the basis of ancestry, ethnic identity, as well as characteristics associated with racial identity, such as one's skin complexion, hair texture, hairstyle, language, or accent, to name a few. Committee members, I urge you to advance SB 327, which provides effective statutory protection when these forms of racial discrimination occur in Nevada's workplaces and schools. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Professor Green, thank you so much. I have to interact with you for just a minute because I just actually told Senator Neal that I find the braids works of art. I am so enamored when I see these beautiful works of art. That's all I can say because they take hours and hours to do, and I'm so amazed at them. So thank you for that information. I'm really, I was interested to hear what you said, so thank you very much. Senator Neal, go ahead. I'm sorry for the interruption.
No, thank you, Madam Chair. I just didn't know, Dr. Green, if Delilah, I wanted her to present, and then Nakia. I'm messing up your name, but I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's been a long day. I forget my name sometimes.
Delilah.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Delilah.
Not a problem.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members. My name is Delilah Clay. I'm an attorney and a legislative advocate, and I'm testifying in my personal capacity about my experience with natural hair in the workplace. I attended law school at Northwestern University from 2009 to 2012, which was right in the midst of the Great Recession. The legal market got hit particularly hard during the downturn. Some firms collapsed, others laid off large numbers of attorneys, and those layoffs were having a disproportionate impact on attorneys of color. So naturally, as law students, there was a lot of angst about our ability to get jobs in that market. I remember being given career advice by practicing attorneys during that time about the importance of looking like you fit, and wearing straight hair was a part of that advice. That stuck with me. Upon graduation, I went on to practice at a large law firm in Chicago. About 2 years into my tenure, I'd gotten to a place where I didn't want to continue straightening my hair. At that point, I'd been chemically straightening my hair for many years, and it was taking its toll. My hair was prone to breakage. It had started to thin. I developed scalp problems, including excessive dandruff and scabs from chemical burns. And the only thing that was stopping me from making a different choice was my concern about how natural hair would affect me at work. I wasn't sure whether I'd be subjected to commentary about my hair or the loss of opportunities. I'd seen examples of that at other firms, and I wasn't sure how it was going to impact me. I was hiding something that is a defining racial characteristic because I was afraid of discrimination. Psychologically, that's damaging. It's a tacit acceptance of the idea that Black hair is inferior. I ended up moving back to California about a year later to be closer to my family, and I decided I wasn't going to hide any longer. I was intentional about going to all of my job interviews with braids. I wanted it to be clear how I was going to present myself. But that decision meant I was accepting the risk that it might be harder for me to find employment. I decided authenticity was worth taking the chance. But that's the point of SB 327. No one should have to make that choice between expressing their racial identity and missing out on economic opportunities. I've been natural now for 5 years. I was able to work on similar legislation known as the Crown Act as it made its way through the California legislature in 2019. One of the things that stood out for me about that effort was how many people, be it legislative members, staff, industry trade groups, were completely unaware of this issue. They hadn't made the link between hair and racial discrimination, but upon learning about it, they came to understand the problem. And I think that's true of most companies and businesses. They want to do the right thing. Companies talk a lot about how to recruit and retain talented employees of color, and workplace policies excluding natural hairstyles is one such barrier. But sometimes you don't know what you don't know. Legislation like SB 327 really creates an opportunity in our workplaces to have the discussion and establish some bright line rules to avoid inadvertent discriminatory policies. These bills are spurring HR trainings and information sharing on best practices. The goal of this legislation is really to create a standard that ultimately improves inclusivity. We shouldn't have to spend time and energy worrying that our hair might limit our options, because at the end of the day, whether my hair is straight, in braids, or in locks has absolutely no bearing on the quality of my work. Thank you for your time. Thanks to Senator Neal and Senator Harris for championing this issue, and I respectfully urge your support of SB 327.
Thank you very much. Senator Neal, was Nakia next?
Yeah, I know we're not pronouncing it right, but Ms. Belazar, come on.
Go ahead, please.
Help us with your name.
Please say your name so we all know. Thank you.
It's Naika Belizaire.
It's Naika Belizaire. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Tell your mom.
It's okay. It's okay. I get it all the time.
Okay. Go ahead and tell us your story.
Of course. Well, good afternoon, everyone here today and the members of the committee. I'm sorry if I speak a little too quick because I only have 3 minutes and I want to make sure I get everything out. But my name is Naika Belizaire and I'm testifying today in support of Senator Dina Neal's SB 327 hair bill as a student in CCSD and also on behalf of Code Switch, Restorative Justice for Girls of Color. So my story is that in the summer before 8th grade, I took a really big step. After years of listening to society tell me that my curly hair was ugly or feeling as though I wasn't enough, I had decided to throw away all my hair relaxers and go natural, to love my natural curls. So it felt only right that I wore an afro on the first day of 8th grade at Hyde Park Middle School. I strut through the school hallways, proud of my afro, ready to present it to the world, but unfortunately, not everyone agreed that my hair should be out for the world to see. My world geography teacher at the time seemed to believe that my hair was a distraction. On the first day, I had decided to sit in the back of her class. And please remember this fact, I was in the back of her class. No one was behind me, and I was known for being a good student. I never talked when unnecessary and always answered questions when the teachers asked. So I was very confused when the teacher called on me to her desk and told me that I was being a distraction. When I asked what she had meant, she stated that my hair was being a distraction and disrupting the classroom environment. Again, I was confused. What did my hair have to do with this? And while contemplating what I could have done wrong, my teacher handed me a slip that stated that I should be dress coded and suspended for insubordination. I was scared as I walked to the principal's office. When I arrived at the front office and showed the secretary my slip, even she was confused. She asked if I was doing anything with my hair during class, and I told her no. And fortunately, she told me to sit down and wait for the class to end because I didn't deserve to have an infraction on my school record just because a teacher didn't like my hair. The next day, I knew I couldn't ignore the teacher, so I went to class and sat in the back again. But I watched as my teacher grew angry, seeing that I was not suspended. The second class ended, I watched as she marched to the principal's office, and minutes later, the words, "Naika Belizaire, please come to the principal's office," rang throughout the school. When I got to the office, the principal told me that, fortunately, I wasn't being suspended, but from that moment on, I was prohibited from wearing an afro to school because it was too unprofessional. At the time, I was heartbroken. A day before that, I had felt on top of the world, afro out and proud, but at that moment, I felt insignificant all over again. I didn't know at the time that I was being discriminated against. I was one of the few Black students in that school, and I'd never seen any other students get dress coded for their hair. I didn't know at the time that I had the right as a human being to wear my hair the way I chose to. just like everybody else. While it's saddening that I have to be in front of you all pushing for the right to wear my hair in school or at work or anywhere without having backlash, this is a necessary step. This is why I support this bill. Because something as natural as my hair should not be seen as a distraction or unprofessional. I do not want any other young Black child or Black person to feel the way that I did, to have their pride stripped from them and instead be forced to feel insignificant and lesser than just because their hair is a little different. Or have to choose between expressing ourselves and having to have a clean record for school. Everyone's hair is beautiful and should be shown to the world loud and proud. Please consider supporting this bill, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Naika. Thank you for joining us today. Senator Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That was the extent of our presentation, and then I just wanted to quickly get into the bill. There are 3 amendments to the bill. Dr. Wendy Green proposed a bill, an amendment to Section 1, it's Section 1. It is lines 27 through 32, which is the sub 9. And I want to have, and that also would apply to Section 2, lines 37 through 41. Dr. Wendy Green, I'm going to put you on because just to explain that piece of the amendment, because I think you do it so well, because you've been, you are the legal scholar on why that language needed to be adjusted from my original language.
Sure. So just to be clear, because I have both up, that's the one about the definition of race, correct?
The race and protective hairstyle.
Okay, sure. So with respect to the First Amendment, it would be race includes ancestry, ethnic group identification, ethnic background, and traits associated with race. And so including but not limited to skin color, hair texture, and protective hairstyles. So what that means is that skin color would come later, and also that historically would be taken out. And I say this for a variety of reasons, but just for the sake of simplicity and time, essentially by taking out historically, it just equalizes the burden for all plaintiffs in discrimination cases, and doesn't put a higher burden on race discrimination plaintiffs, because whenever you're talking about characteristics that are associated with the protected classification, you don't have to demonstrate that the characteristic that's being regulated is historically associated with the protected classification. And so we don't want to impose a higher burden on plaintiffs and race discrimination plaintiffs. We're trying to remove that. If you kind of understood my testimony, we're trying to remove the higher burden that historically associated may unintentionally bring about. And so, for example, if there's ever a challenge about, say, locks being historically associated with African descendants, then that plaintiff would have to demonstrate that historical association. And oftentimes what that means is that they're going to have to bring in an expert like me to be able to establish that historical association or linkage between locks and African ancestry. And no other plaintiffs have that kind of burden, honestly, to have to bring in experts. And I also think even more specifically about pro se plaintiffs, those who don't have lawyers and may also not have the resources to do that. This would just unintentionally may impose a higher burden on race discrimination plaintiffs. And I just use that as an example. It could be other characteristics that are associated with race. And so for anyone who may be bringing a case with respect to discrimination on the basis of mutable or changeable characteristics associated with race, we wouldn't want to unintentionally impose that higher burden by including that historical qualifier.
Thank you for that, Dr. Green, which that then moves me to Section 3, which Section 3 is really simple. It just gives the jurisdiction of the complaint to NERC. The amendment that is happening in Section 6, the language of striking out the language that's in lines 23 through 26, where I was saying that NERC has to complete the investigation within 13 months. And I really do respect Ms. Director Jenkins. NERC actually has a 6-month window that they are supposed to do it. And the reason why I have the 13 months in there, because it normally takes NERC a really long time. And I thought I was doing them a favor by trying to get it in less than 24 months. But they actually statutorily have a 6-month provision under NRS 233-157. And so striking that out. And then in section 8, I accepted an amendment. Well, actually in section 7, I accepted an amendment. Well, and I think it kind of covers it's section 7. So in section 7, I worked with NACO, Washoe, Clark County, and Miss Walker, Joe Walker from League of Cities. So the amendment in section 7 is, since I'm really just dealing with vertical promotion, this particular language in here, and I know that we're talking about hair discrimination, but I really wanted to go after what's happening in the space around glass ceilings, where you are being denied a promotion and you're not clear on how you can overcome that hurdle, and trying to give them capacity to, on appeal, information that they have. So the insertion would be the word vertical in front of promotion, because what I'm dealing with is the individual who is the deputy director and then wants to become the director, but for some reason they can't seem to make it over the hurdle, and they keep having to apply, but they can't make it over. So the next amendment in section 7 was to remove any other form, because the conversation that I had was that the language was broad, that I was getting into their skills assessments, which was not my intent, or their work performance, which wasn't my intent, because I really am trying to get at their promotions. We did an amend for try to exclude I would say, agencies who have fewer than 200 employees, trying to give a carve out to the rural counties who typically are super small. They may have 10 people, 15 people within the grouping. And so to try to give some remedy to them, because typically the third-party testing is baked into the cost. I had been working with an employment agency that does the testing, and the average cost was about $10,000 to $17,000. But typically, a county or agency may be already using a third party, or they're moving in that, but it's a nominal amount for the kind of tests that they have, and they could bake it into their budget. And then the last was to amend section 26, which would make section 7 effective on October 1st, 2021, to allow the local governments to align their processes around this promotion language. And so I wanted to bring that up because, the bill deals with the protective hairstyles, and it also deals with protective hairstyles and discrimination within the school environment. But I had promotion language in there because I wanted to deal with the glass ceiling and make sure that people who are struggling to get promoted, who want to challenge or find themselves in a position where they can do an appeal process and actually get the incorrect answers, so that the next time they promote, number one, they can study and they can be prepared to overcome that barrier. I know far too often women face issues where they are trying to be promoted and they face a ceiling, and they cannot overcome that ceiling for various reasons. And I was trying to give an opportunity, or at least to give them enough information where if they found themselves on a list, that they would have a way to challenge if they kept finding themselves at the bottom of the list, but yet they had the education, they had the training, they had the knowledge, and for some reason they just can't seem to make it over the hurdle, but yet they have no capacity to challenge. They know that it is happening, but they can't prove it. And so the provisions of the bill in Section 7 and 8 were my attempt to try to get at broader discrimination and try to give a foothold to individuals who I feel cannot promote. They have a ceiling because someone just doesn't like them and they don't want them to move up. And so that is the other part of the bill where you're just like, what does Section 7 and 8 do? Well, that's what it does. That was my intent. And then the rest of the bill deals with what we just heard, which is the protective hairstyle and hair discrimination, and trying to establish that in our law. And with that, we will open up for questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you very, very much. Committee, questions from you? I don't know if I see any questions. Dr. Green must have done a really good job. I was really interested in hearing what you were saying and the history of it. So thank you again. Naika did a great job describing her school experience. So thank you so much for being here with us, as well as
Delilah Clay.
I know. All of a sudden I was like, who did I miss? It's been a long day for us. It's been a
Totally understand.
But thank you so much. It really was very interesting information. And Senator Neal, I don't see any questions from the committee. So if you'd like, we'll just go to support and opposition and neutral.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right. Broadcasting, if you'd like to go ahead and go to support, we'd like to hear from people. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support of SB 327, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 229, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, Chair and Committee. Jamie Rodriguez, that's spelled Jamie Rodriguez. I'm the Government Affairs Manager for Washoe County. I want to start by very much so thanking Senator Neal for meeting with us to discuss our concerns with the bill. Our concerns, as she stated, were very specific to Section 7. We are very much in support of the remainder of the bill. So I do want to thank her for our conversation, that we have a path forward to help her reach her intent, but make it operational for us. And again, that includes kind of a clearer definition of what promotion could be. And the reason that we have some concerns about that is that we could have people, or we frequently have individuals who change into, different departments, similar positions, but in different departments within the county, which may result in higher pay, or they may go there because they have more opportunities to rise in the ranks. And this would make it so that all of our employment would really have to go through that third party, and that would be a cost that we are concerned would be very substantial for us. Also appreciate the clarification in Section 7.4 about the testing. Our concern was that it could be too vague in terms of what oral argument could be, and some of those provisions. And lastly, for changing the implementation date for Section 7, this will just allow us time to come up with contracts to hire those third parties for the specific positions that Section 7, would now apply to. So again, I very much so want to thank the bill sponsor for working with us. We are very much in support of the intent of the bill, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 643, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon. I'm Sonia Watson, SONYAWATSON. I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak in support of SB 327 on behalf of the Las Vegas National Bar Association. When I learned that this bill was on the table, I jumped at the opportunity to lend my support because the issues of Black hair and Black hair care are near and dear to me. I stopped chemically straightening my hair 8 years ago in 2013, and I had meant to make the change 3 years earlier, but my mother strongly discouraged me from doing so. I will never forget what she said to me when I told her I had decided to grow out my natural hair. I was in my last year of undergrad and on my way to law school. She said, "Sonia, now it's not the time to get militant." I thought she was being overly dramatic, but while her word choice was strong and out of context, this was 2010, not 1975, I understood the underlying sentiment. What she meant was, "Sonia, now is not the time to do anything that might be perceived as radical. Now is the time to fit in. Now is the time to garner acceptance. Now is not the time to do anything that would give anyone any reason to deny you opportunities." She was afraid that me wearing my natural hair might cause people in positions of power to reject me. And as you've seen from the presentation today, her fear was not unfounded. Many Black women and men are extremely mindful of the way we wear our hair because, as evidenced by the need for this bill, our hair is political. But I really believe that it shouldn't be. Rather, I feel that it is my God-given right to wear my God-given hair the way it grows from my head, in the styles that allow it to flourish. It should not take a legislative act for me to be allowed to just be me. Yet here I am today asking you to support my right to wear my hair the way I need to wear it. And please know I said the way I need to wear it. Protective styles are necessary for the health of Black hair. It seems to me that people who do not have Afro-textured hair are generally permitted to wear their hair in styles that suit them. People with Afro-textured hair should be able to do the same without fear of rejection or reprisal, which is why the Las Vegas National Bar Association urges you to support SB 327. Essentially, a vote for SB 327 is a vote for diversity and inclusion, which I think we can all agree is good and necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 964, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, Mary Walker, MaryWalker, representing Carson, Douglas, Lyons, and Story counties. We rise in support of SB 327 with the amendment to Section 7, which excludes rural counties from that section while keeping rural counties in the remainder of the bill, which we support. We sincerely appreciate Senator Neal working with us and bringing this bill forward. We support the intent of the bill and believe it will help level the playing field for employees trying to do better and trying to get ahead. Thank you, Madam Chairman, for allowing me to speak today. I hope everyone's doing well. Take care.
Thank you so much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 133, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Dondero Loop, Senators Neal and Harris, and all members present. Lori Farmer for the record, LORIFARMER. I am the Social Action Committee Chair of the Las Vegas Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, the largest Black women's organization in the world, more than 350,000 college-educated women strong. I am proud to be part of an organization that has fought against inequality and injustice since its inception in 1913, and just yesterday was named as one of several organizations joining the third federal lawsuit filed to challenge the Georgia election overhaul bill that was signed into law last week. While I speak proudly of my sorority, I don't speak on behalf of my sorority today. My point is Black women have always been fighters because we've had to be. I come to you as a private citizen who wears my kinky, curly, natural hair in a protective style, a person of color among many who for generations have been subjected to the centering of the Eurocentric view that elevates all things white as the standards of beauty and excellence, inferring anything else is othered and therefore inferior. I speak as a Black woman who comes from an illustrious lineage of royalty established long before my people were enslaved and brought to this country, lessons that are not taught enough in our schools and society. We've had to fight for the right to simply exist, to live and move in this world the way we were created to enter spaces as our best selves, not as subdued reflections of whiteness. With this in mind, I wholeheartedly support SB 327 and what it represents, an opportunity for all people of color to proudly express our racial identities without fear of repercussion, and I encourage you to do the same. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 486. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, I'm J.P. Kemp, K-E-M-P, on behalf of the the Nevada Justice Association, and here in support of SB 327. Thanks so much to Senator Neal for bringing this very important bill to the legislature this session. As an employment attorney, I fully support the clarifying definition of race for purposes of anti-discrimination statutes and the addition of the protective hairstyle protection and definition that is there throughout the bill. I have had prospective clients come and see me who have been harassed or discriminated against because of their hairstyles, which are associated with race and ethnicity. In fact, I have a client now who has a charge with the Equal Rights Commission who she had been harassed because of her hairstyle, made complaints to the employer, and was ultimately terminated in retaliation for her protected activity in opposing that discrimination. There is no legitimate business reason to treat employees or school students differently due to their hairstyles, and this would be a welcome new protection in Nevada law. Section 3 of the bill adds important requirements informing persons with charges before the Equal Rights Commission regarding procedures and processes of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, including their substantial weight review of Nevada Equal Rights Commission determinations. I think that's an important thing for people who have charges to be made aware of those provisions. Section 6 of the bill, I'm glad to hear that it's being amended. It tends to be, in my experience, that the more meritorious a charge is, the longer it takes to complete the investigation. So I'm glad to hear that there is an amendment to that. Section 7, 8, and 23 of SB 327 requiring testing to be done in the promotions process for public sector employees to be performed by an independent third-party testing entity, I think is a great idea. I have seen in my experience situations where the employee seeking a promotion has felt that the testing process was corrupted in ways that they've thought to be discriminatory, and agencies that they work for manipulating testing processes to favor certain employees based on race or cronyism or some other illegitimate basis. SB 327 represents an excellent step forward in legal protections for protected classifications, including particularly race, and the Nevada Justice Association urges the committee to support SB 327. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please. And I would tell the callers, if anybody wants to say ditto, because the person before you has said that, please feel free to.
Thank you, Chair. Caller with the last three digits of 107. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Yes, hello. Good evening, everyone. My name is Natasha Gaspard, for the record, Natasha Gaspard, Gaspard. I'm the founder of Main Moves Media, and I create lifestyle content for women of color with natural hair, i.e. kinky, coily, curly textured hair. I started this company back in 2009, not only to dispel the harmful messages Black women have been receiving for decades and decades that our naturally textured hair, our God-given tresses were ugly, unmanageable, unprofessional, and every other negative, disparaging way our hair has been talked about and treated, but to help in making the connection to the ways in which racist laws infiltrate every system that has haunted Black people since they were stolen and sold around the world, including America. The horrible legacy of racism has forced Black women for generations to seek out many harmful measures to fit this Eurocentric hair standard, straight hair standard, in order to assimilate and that has only added to our physical, emotional, and psychological trauma. I am in full support of SB 327 and proud that the state of Nevada is striving to right the many wrongs Black women, men, and children have and continue to face in the workplace and schools specifically with the passing of SB 327. Ending the discrimination that prefers a certain type of hair and causes those with kinky, coily, and textured hair to either lose employment, be denied employment, embarrassment, harassment, and children being sent home from school, being suspended or denied graduation, or called to the principal's office, as the young sister Nayata Belazier so courageously testified to today. It is an important piece of legislation that will help to legally protect people with kinky, coily textured hair and our culturally relevant hairstyles. By affirming our identity, it will also ensure us to be free to be ourselves the way that we were created to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 126. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Marie Wakefield. Thank you to the chair and thank you to Senator Neal for this opportunity. I speak in support of Senate Bill SB 327. Social scientists have long chronicled the impact of an individual's appearance on numerous outcomes, including others' judgment of individuals' competence, amicability, intelligence, and trustworthiness. These judgments affect hiring decisions, promotions, performance appraisals, and other critical outcomes. Hair, like skin color, is a social marker. We are not talking about risque clothing or dress or adding unusual adornments to the body or dress. Hair, we're talking about a God-given trait that is birth inherited and generationally endowed. African Americans have been expected to fit into a mold created by a group of people outside of this cultural spectrum. Why do we no longer celebrate the diversity of this nation? Why have we become a nation who says you can't wear your hair that way because I choose not to? Can I not wear my identity to honor who I am and whose I am? How does this hairstyle impact my skill set? How does this hairstyle impact professional protocols? It is documented that a strong and very positive racial identity can play a positive role in the emotional, mental, and psychological well-being of African Americans. Stronger racial identity consistently predicts better psychological functioning and is documented to serve as a protective factor for African Americans, enabling them to maintain positive achievement and psychological health by diminishing the effects of discrimination. Hair, in this diverse society, do we ask Muslims to remove their turbans, or do we choose to ask anyone of the Jewish faith to change their clothing? But yet African Americans need to cut or remove their locks. To prove what? I support Senate Bill 327. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and it's good to hear your voice, Dr. Wakefield. Next caller.
You're welcome.
Please.
Caller with the last three digits of 811. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening. My name is Diane Bailey, D-I-A-N-E, Bailey, B-A-I-L-E-Y. I am the CEO of Emerge, Natural Beauty Industry Alliance. I have been in the industry of natural hair for over 40 years and considered a thought leader in the industry. And I'm just going to say all the things that everyone else has said. We want to normalize naturally textured Afro hair and protective styling. It is our culture. It is our human right to be able to be authentic and unapologetically natural. So I just want to support the bill 327 and also support our young ladies and our young men in our communities to be able to wear their hair natural in the workplace, in school, and in public arenas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 956. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, and thank you, Chair. For the record, this is Liz Davenport, LIZDAVENPORT, on behalf of the ACLU of Nevada in support of SB 327. Thank you, Senator Neal and Senator Harris, for bringing this bill. The ACLU supports reforms that create a more equitable and diverse workforce. As Senator Harris noted, natural hairstyles should be normalized and protected from discrimination. I'll merely echo the testimony of all of those before me discussing how natural hairstyles are discriminated against and the harm that causes. I do want to note that in 2019, the Ninth Circuit in Davis v. Guam discussed how the current legal understanding of racial categories is shifting. The Ninth Circuit endorsed that race can be understood as cultural characteristics instead of only immutable physical characteristics. The Ninth Circuit cited how the shifting understanding of race-based characteristics should include factors such as hair, citing Dr. Green's scholarship and specifically saying that race discrimination may occur through discrimination of cultural characteristics that are not necessarily unique or exclusive to a particular racial group, such as natural hairstyles. Many states and cities have passed similar legislation in protecting natural hairstyles, including Maryland, Washington, Colorado, Virginia, New Jersey, New York, California, and cities in Ohio, Alabama, and Missouri. We should join these states. Further, this bill aims to address the historic discrimination that occurs from testing and bias in promotions in the workplace. We know that workplace promotions have historically been racially and gender biased and support the movement away from underrepresentation in the workplace. The ACLU supports protections against discriminatory practices and supports SB 327. Thank you, and that concludes my testimony.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
If you recently just joined us, we are currently in support of SB 327. To testify in support, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you very much. We'll go to opposition, please.
To testify in opposition of SB 327, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits of 196. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Dondero Loop and members of the Senate Government Affairs Committee. I'm Eric Spratley, ERICSPRATLEY, Executive Director of the Nevada Sheriffs and Chiefs Association, here in opposition to Sections 7 and 8 only of Senate Bill 327. I've not yet testified before this committee, so just some background. The Nevada Sheriffs and Chiefs Association represents law enforcement leadership for all Nevada law enforcement agencies, both urban and rural. Regretfully, I missed this bill on my radar and was just made aware of it and the concerns for some of it by our membership, so I've not had a chance to meet with Senator Neal, regretfully, regarding our concerns with the third-party testing and the procedures associated with that in Sections 7 and 8. But I've had a great working relationship with Senator Neal since about 2013, and I'm confident we will arrive at a place where we are not in opposition. We do not oppose any other part of the bill, and if you know me at all, you know I'm very jealous of people with hair because I have none, so the rest of it's good. Thank you, Chair Dondero Loop.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
To testify in opposition of SB 327, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much. We'll hear neutral.
To testify neutral on SB 327, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits of 116, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Alexis Motorex, ALEXIS MOTAREX, with the Nevada Chapter Associated General Contractors, representing the commercial construction industry in Northern Nevada. We are neutral on SB 327, but would like to see clarification included to ensure that nothing in this proposal would preempt OSHA regulations or rules to comply with all necessary safety protocols, procedures, and PPE requirements. For example, if a hard hat is required but would not fit properly because of a particular hairstyle, this proposal should not exempt an employee from that safety requirement. We must ensure that safety comes first. We hope to work with Senator Neal to make sure employees are both protected from discrimination while keeping them safe on job sites. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And broadcasting, as we go through neutral, do we have someone on the line with the last three numbers of 473?
Chair, currently I do not see anyone in the queue with those last three digits. Oh, someone, I'm sorry, Chair, someone is just in the waiting room. Let me admit them. Yes, Chair, they do.
Please go ahead.
Caller with the last three digits of 473, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello?
Chair, currently I do not see anyone in the queue with those last three digits.
Hello?
Oh, someone,
Hello.
I'm sorry, Chair. Someone
Go ahead, please.
I'm sorry, we're having a little bit of feedback. Please go ahead.
This is Berna Rhodes Ford, B as in boy, ERNA, RHODES, FORD. I was in the queue to testify in support, and I would like to testify in support. Thank you, Madam Chair, for convening this meeting, and thank you, Senator Neal, for sponsoring SB 327. I am the co-chair of the Legislative Committee of Jack and Jill of America, the Las Vegas chapter. We are a membership organization of mothers with children from ages 2 to 19 dedicated to nurturing future African-American leaders by strengthening our children through development, leadership development, volunteer service, philanthropic giving, and civic duty. We can't nurture our children if they can't be their natural selves. I'm also testifying on behalf of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Theta Theta Omega chapter, where I serve as president. We are the oldest Greek letter organization established by African American college educated women. Our mission is service to all mankind, and we focus on education, women's health and wellness, building strong families, and other community concerns. We can't support Black families, and we can't support our community if we don't stand up to wholesale degradation based on our hair. Both the Las Vegas chapter of Jack and Jill and the Theta Theta Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha support the provisions of SB 327 that include hair textures and protective hairstyles to be recognized as form of race discrimination. Black women are 80% more likely than white women to believe that they have to change their hairstyle to fit in at the office. I shouldn't have to change the way my hair grows out of my head to fit into the office or to have the privilege to stay at work. I urge your support of Senate Bill 327. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being patient with our call-in. Broadcasting, if we can jump back to opposition again, please.
Yes, Chair, absolutely. Actually, I believe we were on neutral testimony, Chair.
Apologies, I'm sorry.
To testify neutral on SB 327, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue.
Chair Loop and members of the committee, good evening now. This is Carrie Jenkins, Administrator for the Nevada Equal Rights Commission. You all are amazing. Hang in there. NERC is neutral. We're the enforcement agency, but we're encouraged by this bill. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jenkins, for hanging in there with us. Next caller, please.
Thank you, Chair. Caller with the last three digits of 240. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last three digits of 240. We can see you're unmuted. You may begin speaking. Moving on to the next caller. Caller with the last three digits of 739. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, Madam Chair. This is Joanna Jacob, Joanna Jacob, Government Affairs Manager for Clark County. I'm neutral on SB 327. I do want to recognize Senator Neal's very hard work to work with local governments, and she has put a lot of work and research into this bill. We had concerns on Section 7. We're actually supportive of the rest of the bill, making some very needed changes to the state of the law. Senator Neal has worked out our larger concerns with Section 7, and want to say thank you to her for doing that and literally racing to get amendments done as we were heading to this hearing. And so wanted to put that on the record and thank her for the support. We know that this may have some impact to Clark County, but we are going to make it work because in consideration of the important policy changes that this bill is making. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits of 240. Please press *6 now to unmute yourself. Thank you, caller. Please begin. It seems as though we are still having technical difficulties with that caller.
All right, we'll wait just a minute. I received a message that someone was waiting.
There is currently no one in the waiting room. But I will announce for the queue one more time, Chair, if you would like.
Broadcasting, I don't know if you can do this. Can you give the public call-in number and password that people use to call in for this or not?
I will check on the rules for that. Please stand by 1 second, Chair. Absolutely, I sure can.
If you could do that, that would be helpful. Somebody was asking for clarification.
Yes, I can. If you would like to testify today, please call 1-669-900-6833. And then your meeting ID number is 810-9401-8734. Again, if you would like to call, dial 1-669-900-6833 and type in meeting ID 810-9401-8734. If you recently just joined us, 33.
Yes. This is Nedra Cooper, spelled Nedra.
Go ahead, caller. Please proceed.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Nedra Cooper, Nedra Cooper. My pronouns are her, she, and hers. I am a member of the Las Vegas Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I am the chair of the Social Action Committee. I'm also the state coordinator for the Social Action Committee. I'm a life member of Delta and also a life member of the NAACP. I stand before you. I'm not speaking for either of those organizations. I'm speaking as a Black woman who wears natural hair and who has worn natural hair since 1970. I want to thank Senator Neal and Senator Harris for bringing this very important discrimination in the forefront so that we can all take challenge. I'm going to diddle what everyone said, and I'm not going to take your time. I know that this has been a long day, but I want to add a couple of things. I just want to remind everybody that the motto of our state is battle born. And what that means is that we take steps forward and not backwards, that we deal with discrimination, we look it face on, and we make changes. So we're sitting here before you saying there is no reason that a person should be discriminated because of the style of their hair, their natural texture. We want to have representation. We want to be represented just like everybody else. So we're asking not only that you pass this bill, that you keep in mind that we want to be represented. I want to live my life not in fear, and not in condemnation, nor in confrontation. I don't want to be confronted because someone thinks that my hair is not professional. Just as anyone else, my braids can go into a bun, it can go into a ponytail, it can go half up, it can go half down. So before you, I stand and say that it is very important to our social, our economical, our mental and physical being that you take a good look at this bill. And I just want to thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much. And with that, broadcasting, I believe we've completed all our callers.
Chair, I just had one more person join after I gave out the information.
Okay, go ahead, please.
If you would like to testify neutral on this bill, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. That's Senate Bill 327. To testify neutral, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, it seems as no one is wishing to testify neutral at this time.
Thank you very much. And with that, Senator Neal, any closing comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know Dr. Wendy Green, I'm going to let her have the closing comment.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Dr. Green.
Okay, well, thank you so much again. I know that time is, can everybody hear me? I'm sorry. Okay, all righty. I'm in South Carolina, and there's been a bit of tornadic activity going on. Senator Neal, don't laugh at that. It's serious. I'm actually being very serious. But in any event, I just wanted to address one of the concerns about safety and health regulations. It would not undermine those safety and health regulations that are this particular bill 327, and especially as it relates to race-based natural hair discrimination. It would not undermine those federal mandates as it relates to health and safety in workplaces. The main thing, like any other type of neutral grooming regulations that we see even in, say, the religious context, the religious accommodations context, where you may have grooming regulations that are very much centered around trying to ensure the health and safety of workers as well as third parties. Similarly, what this bill will do is to ensure that employers will engage in that interactive process to determine, ways to accommodate that employee who may, for example, wear longer hair and might infringe upon some of their abilities to do the job effectively without any kind of safety concerns. Additionally, as long as the employer adheres to the law, which is not to enact these types of neutral grooming policies on the basis of discriminatory reasons, stereotypes, biases, things of that nature, then, the employer absolutely can impose, neutral grooming policies that are related to bona fide safety and health regulations. So I just wanted to ensure all of you that it would not infringe upon those types of mandates under either federal or state law. And that at the end of the day, this bill is really trying to ensure that all employers are in compliance with the law and by removing potentially race-based stereotypes or biases or associations with not only natural hairstyles, but as well as other types of characteristics that may be associated with race.
Thank you so much, Dr. Green. Thank you for your time. Please stay safe in the tornadoes. And with that, we will close the hearing on Senate Bill 327. and we'll hope that we have Senator Harris in the queue to begin testifying on Senate Bill 200.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
We're going on 3 hours. Can we do the workshop next? Because I actually have to leave here pretty quick. So this is a 3-hour committee almost so far, and the workshop, we can't do it now. I'm just going to have to go down as a no on all of the bills.
Well, Senator Hammond, I can't tell you how to vote. I did have a conversation with all the committee members and tell them that we had not done some Friday meetings and that we would have a couple very long meetings this week. I apologize for the length, but I think that our constituents and our public deserve the chance to weigh in. We probably will roll the work session to another meeting. If you need to leave, I can't stop you from doing that. But it's your call, sir. I can't tell you what to do.
Madam Chair, what I meant by no was that my understanding is if I'm not actually present, that my vote automatically counts as a no. I don't want to do that. But anyway, yeah, at 6:30, I'm going to stay till 6:45 and tell the person and I'll have to wait. But my apologies. I didn't realize we're going to go this long tonight. So, yeah, I would need to vote. But if you can roll it to another day, I'll be gone at 6:45.
Okay, thank you, sir. And I'll make sure that I send an email to everybody and reiterate that we were going to have some long meetings the next couple weeks. So, so make sure everybody's schedules are free. All right, with that, Senator Harris, are you there?
I am, Chair.
Thank you. Please go ahead, sir. Madam.
All right, good evening. Senator Hansen, don't worry, you're going to love this bill. I promise. Thank you, Chair Dondera Loop, Vice Chair Oren Shaw. My name is Senator Dallas Harris. I represent District 11, which is in the southwest part of Clark County. It's my pleasure to present Senate Bill 200 to you today. I'm going to try and make this as quick as possible. This bill establishes what has been called the Auto IRA, or by some organizations, the Work and Save program. Here's what the Auto IRA does. It offers an opportunity to those employees whose employers have chosen not to offer the benefit of automatic savings, whether that be because of the cost or for any other reason, an opportunity to have a way to save through their paycheck. Let me tell you a little bit about why that's important. Anyone can go out and get an IRA today. That's true. But to expect folks to know the difference between Vanguard and Mass Mutual and Fidelity and an ETF versus a mutual fund is really a very, very high burden. And we know that most people save through their employer. That is the easiest way to get it done before it hits their pockets. That is the best way to try and take that sting out of the saving on the front end. And the truth is, many people, up to about 50% of Nevadans, simply don't have that option, the option to save through their employer. Take a second, if you will, everybody, and think just a little bit about how Nevadans would have been affected if we had this bill in place prior to a catastrophe like the pandemic. And they had some savings that they could tap into. How much less good for Nevadans, it's good for Nevada. Each and every person deserves the opportunity to be able to save a little bit for a rainy day. Not only also invest those funds in order to make a little bit of money. Let me tell you guys a little bit about some of the benefits that come with saving in an IRA. If you're able to put some money away, you can deduct that from your taxes. Now, that's if you do a traditional IRA and not the Roth. But if you deduct that from your income, you pay less taxes. Not only do you pay less taxes, it also calculates into your student loan payments. And so how absurd is it that someone like me who may make a little bit more money than the average Nevadan has the opportunity to pay less taxes and to have on a monthly basis a smaller student loan payment. We need to make sure that every Nevadan has the ability to parlay not just the saving benefits, but all of those other benefits that come with it. I have with me Ms. Ekman, Jessica Ekman, who is a senior legislative representative from AARP. We had the treasurer from Oregon, Treasurer Tobias Reed, but he had to go at about almost 2 hours ago now. And we have Ms. Eccles, who's the director of the Secure Choice Savings Program for the state of Illinois. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Ekman, if that's okay with you, Chair Luke, to talk a little bit about the national efforts, and then over to Ms. Eccles to speak a bit about how Illinois is tackling this issue.
Yes, thank you very much. And just as a point of information, Senator Harris, before we move on, I will roll the work session to another day. I would encourage our members to stay for the meeting, but I will roll the work session. So if anybody's waiting for that, I apologize for the length of the meeting today, but I think the subjects are important. So go ahead, please, Senator Harris, and sorry for the interruption.
Oh, no, and I just, before we kick it over to Ms. Ekman, I also want to give my thanks to the committee for hanging in there and squeezing us in at the end of the day to hear what I think is a very important bill. Ms. Ekman.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Good evening, Chairwoman Dondera Loop, Vice Chairman Orenshaw, and members of the committee. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today on an issue of great importance to the people of Nevada. My name is Jessica Ekman. I'm a senior legislative representative with AARP. Thank you on behalf of AARP Nevada's more than 340,000 members for considering our testimony on SB 200, creating the Nevada Employee Savings Trust. This state, like many others, is facing a retirement crisis. The average Social Security benefit in Nevada is about $19,000 a year, while on average, older families in Nevada spend $23,000 a year on food, utilities, and healthcare alone. Social Security was never intended to be a person's sole source of income in retirement. The Georgetown Center for Retirement Initiatives recently conducted a study that found that 23% of Nevada seniors rely on Social Security for at least 90% of their income. Personal retirement savings is a prerequisite to self-reliance in retirement, and we know that employees are 15 times more likely to save merely by having access to a workplace retirement plan. Yet about 57% of Nevada's private sector employees, which is approximately 557,000 individuals, work for an employer that does not offer a retirement plan. This problem is not going to solve itself. And the problem is lack of access. Although individuals without access to a way to save for retirement at work could, as Senator Harris mentioned, open up their own individual retirement accounts, this rarely happens. Only 5% of people will go out and open an IRA on their own, and the numbers have not changed in decades. Certain groups of people are disproportionately impacted by a lack of access to retirement plans, including women, employees of color, and the contingent workforce. Programs such as that laid out in SB 200 are necessary to reach a huge and underserved population. This legislation provides for a public-private approach to retirement savings. Businesses would have access to a simple plug-and-play retirement program for their employees and would only be responsible for giving information packets to their employees and remitting payroll deductions. Employees would be automatically enrolled in the program with the option to opt out of participation at any time. Employees would also have full control over how much they want to put away and what they want to invest in. How much you save, if at all, is entirely up to you. Accounts would be portable, so a person could take their savings with them if they change jobs. The program is designed to be self-sustaining over time and will be participant funded. The state simply plays the role of aggregating small businesses while the private sector runs investments. By affording workers access to a simple way to save for retirement, fewer households will need to rely on social services, ultimately saving taxpayer dollars. Research has found that Nevada could save $24 million on public assistance programs between 2018 and 2032 if lower-income retirees saved enough to increase their retirement income by just $1,000 more per year. In addition, these programs will grow a new generation of investors who can build their assets and invest in more complex financial service products down the road. Today, 12 states have enacted similar programs, with many more states engaging on the issue. The momentum is not slowing down either. In fact, we've seen great progress even during the pandemic, including new legislation enactment and increased support for programs. Oregon Saves was the first in the nation program of its type to launch in 2017, followed closely by Illinois and California. Between these 3 states alone, there's over $195 million in assets under management, with over 300,000 funded accounts. It's important to note that many of these workers are first-time savers who otherwise would have had no access to a payroll deduction retirement savings option. Success seen in already existing programs is a great example of how they can really make a difference for people trying to save their own money for retirement and save Nevada taxpayer dollars as well. We recognize the enormously positive impacts this legislation and program could have on the state of Nevada and its taxpayers. AARP is fully supportive of the passage and implementation of this bill, and we urge you to support SB 200. Thank you again for having me today, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Senator Harris, did you have anything, or did you want us to go right to questions?
I have Ms. Eccles, who is from the California program, the director of the Secure Choice Savings Program. I'm sorry, in the state of Illinois, not California. I apologize. Ms. Eccles.
Thank you so much, Senator, and appreciate the time of the committee today. I will be incredibly brief. I know it's been a long day for all of you. So my name is Courtney Eccles. I'm the director of Illinois Secure Choice, which is one of the state-administered auto IRA programs that has been launched in the last couple of years. So as Senator Harris said, and as Jessica commented already, these programs are really about creating access for workers to be able to save their own money. And we really have a twofold goal here in Illinois, but I think I can also speak on behalf of Oregon and California and all of the other states who are moving forward. The focus is truly to make this as easy as possible for workers to save, but also incredibly simple for employers to facilitate. At the end of the day, what we really see is while there are certainly private sector options that we love and support when it comes to 401ks and other employer-sponsored plans, there are just going to be businesses that, for whatever reason, aren't able to offer their own plan. Perhaps it's too much administration, the cost is too high, or you happen to have really tight margins or a lot of turnover. And for those reasons, these state auto IRA programs offer an alternative. It allows workers to have this benefit and let their workers save for retirement without having the same level of control and oversight that they have to have with a 401k or other employer-sponsored plan. So I did just want to comment a little bit on how these programs work and what they actually look like, just as one of the states that is up and running. So really for us, these programs are truly public-private partnerships. So I'm the director of the program. We have one other individual within the treasurer's office who focuses on this, and that's it when it comes to state employees. We work directly with a number of different financial service organizations that do the record keeping and administration, the client services, all of the reporting, and then we also partner with a number of investment managers, private sector investment managers, including BlackRock, Charles Schwab, and State Street. When you look at how these programs work, it's really about 3 different things, I'd say, for the role of the employer. Like I said, the goal for us is to make this incredibly simple. We, as the program, take on all of the work, and really for employers, they register for the program. They add their employees. For us, that happens online through a secure employer portal. They add a list of employees, and then they remit contributions on behalf of their employees. And I think the easiest way to think about that is in the same way an employer, sends money to an individual's paycheck. They also need to remit state taxes, payroll taxes, federal taxes. This is really just one additional line item on that payroll processing that they do whenever it is that they run payroll. The rest of the work is handled by the program. And again, I think what this really comes to at the heart is making it easy for a worker to save. Their money comes out as a part of a payroll process and goes into their own IRA, an account that they own, that they control, and that's portable. So if they move from job to job, they're not opening a number of different accounts along the way. when you think about it from the employer aspect, or excuse me, the saver aspect, I think the key considerations here are that this is an automatic enrollment with an opt-out. So it's completely voluntary for workers, but we make it as easy as possible so that if you're someone who knows, I want to be saving, but I don't know much beyond that, the program really takes care of it for you. We have defaults in place. These are pretty common amongst the states, but of course there's variation here and there. Our savers put away 5% into a target date fund that's appropriate for their age and expected date of retirement. Obviously, the nice piece about that is they can start saving, they don't have to think about it, and their retirement account is working for them as they go through their work life. Individual savers can change those amounts, they can increase what they contribute, they can lower that, and they, of course, can choose from a limited number of other fund options. But again, what we've really sought out is simplicity for the employer and simplicity for the saver. We launched our program a few years ago, about 2.5 years ago in 2018. And since that time, we have amassed over 85,000 workers in our state and a little over $55 million. And I think you've heard this earlier, but again, these are in many cases first-time savers who may not even had access to a savings account, let alone a retirement account before this time. I know Senator Harris mentioned thinking about COVID and really what I think the pandemic has forced all of us to really reckon with, which is the fact that so few people have access to any type of savings vehicle. And I would certainly echo that we saw that in Illinois as well. We have over 6,000 registered employers across our state. Nearly half of those work in retail and food and service industries, so those hardest hit by the pandemic. And even still through all of that, we saw the growth in our employers and savers every single month of 2020. And what that says to me is that even during these times, employers want to give their workers that access and workers want the ability to have something to save. A few final numbers just for your consideration, because I think the populations we talk about are pretty consistent despite what state we're from. The average monthly savings for most of our workers is about $100. And so if you think about that as 5% of their income, again, we're talking about certainly lower to middle income workers, which to me is a sign of folks wanting to save, even if it's just a little bit at a time. And then the last thing I would add is just as we think about these programs expanding across the state, there's certainly commitment amongst all of us to really find solutions that will increase access to savings. And at the end of the day, what we've certainly seen employers and workers in Illinois say is, from the employer perspective, this wasn't as hard as they thought. It was a whole heck of a lot easier. They don't really have to think about it once they're in. And for our workers, what we hear really frequently is they never actually thought they would have a job where they had access to this type of benefit. And the relief and the security people start to feel with having a savings account and something that they know they can put away for their future has really changed people's mindset. So more than happy to answer any questions. Incredibly excited to see that this is an initiative moving forward in the state of Nevada. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
And Madam Chair, if I could just make two more comments before we go to questions. I think it's really important to note two things. One, the cost to employers for this program is zero. Zero. You heard me right. There's nothing we're asking of the business community except to facilitate their employees opting out of the program. On the point of it being an opt-out, I am very cognizant of the fact that there are some folks who need literally every dime that they make. That is why this program will be designed to have a very long off-ramp for anyone who takes a look at the impact of that paycheck and says, I simply can't do this. There will be a mechanism for folks to get their money back penalty-free. Penalty-free, every dime. If after 60 days, I'm willing to even entertain going as high as 120 days, and they see the paychecks and decide they simply can't handle the savings. And so this by no means would lead to folks not having a choice in participating in the program. With that, Chair, I'll subject myself and Ms. Eccles and Ms. Ekman, if they'll hang around, to some questions.
Thank you very much. Questions, committee?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Senator Neal, please.
Thank you. So I had a question on section 20. This is, I wrote it down as powers that the board would have. So if you look at line 13, A and B, I guess I'm wondering like the expense, because this says provide for the administration of all or part of a program by another state. So you're taking on another state. And then the same thing where it says administer all or part of the qualified employee savings trust program of another state. And it says that again in sub C. And so when I saw one or more states, all I kept thinking about was how expensive that would be in terms of the administration. And when I looked at the composition of the board, I wanted you guys to help me understand how does that work when you're dealing with other states? Because it's super expansive.
Senator Neal, to you through the chair, I read this language in the opposite direction. This is not intended for Nevada to bring on other states. It's actually intended to allow Nevada to join other states that are already established. For that exact reason, it's better to be able to spread the administrative costs amongst a large number of participants. And so it was important to me that there was the ability, if we find it to be beneficial for us, to possibly tack on to Illinois' program. I know our state treasurer has had discussions with the treasurer in Colorado and the treasurer in Oregon, and it may be beneficial for us to tack on to one of their programs. And so this is not intended to suggest Nevada will be taking on another state, but more to suggest that Nevada may decide it's better to spread administrative costs by joining another state.
Thank you.
Additional questions from the committee? All right. I think everybody's probably out of questions.
We wore them down, Chair.
Exactly. So we will go to Senator Gokachia. Did you have a question? I didn't know if you were talking and you were on mute or if you had a question. I can't hear you, sir.
Don't have a question. I apologize for not being on mute.
Okay, thank you. So we will go to support and opposition and neutral. Senator?
Yes, we're ready for that unless there's further questions, but please, all members, feel free to come speak with me about this at later times if other questions do come up.
Thank you. So broadcasting, we'll go ahead to support.
Yes, Chair. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. To testify in support of SB 200, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 528, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last 3 digits of 528, please press star 6 now to unmute yourself. Thank you. Please begin.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Barry Gold, B-A-R-R-Y-G-O-L-D. When this hearing began, I was still the Director of Government Relations for AARP Nevada, and I think I still am. You've heard today that 57% of Nevada's private sector employees don't have a way to save through retirement. And while that is true, that's not the whole story. We've done a lot of research about Nevada-specific numbers, and actually small businesses with less than 100 employees, it's 80% of small business employees have no way to save for retirement. And the fact is people just don't save on their own for retirement. Less than 10% of people on their own, not through their job, save for retirement. And when they're getting ready to retire, the average person has about $25,000 or left saved for retirement. And that just doesn't work. If they can save through payroll deductions, that increases by up to 15 times as much. So people really need to save for retirement. AARP did extensive research. We did a small business survey, and there's a lot of things we found out. We found out that lower income people have less access to payroll savings plans, and also the plan differs by race and by ethnicity. For people, Caucasians, it's 51% have no way to save through retirement or have a way to save for retirement, but 64% of Hispanic workers and 63% of African Americans lacked access to an employer-provided retirement plan. So it really changes in terms of having the ability to save through retirement through payroll deductions really changes on a lot of factors. I put in the exhibits a small business survey that we did with 500 small businesses, and these businesses, 76% said they had no plan offered. They didn't offer any plan for their employees to save for retirement. And the reasons are simple and easy to understand. It was number one, too costly, number two, too time consuming, or number three, just too complicated. But these same small business owners said that 72% agreed that the state should do more to encourage residents to save. Over half of them expressed concern that their employees would have enough money to save for retirement. And here's the kicker right here. 79% agree that Nevada lawmakers should support a state retirement savings program, and 72% support legislation that would establish a managed, ready-to-go Nevada retirement savings option. And how about this number? 80% of the small business owners that we surveyed agreed that being able to offer a retirement savings program through payroll deductions would help these small businesses stay competitive. How about that? So it also helps them attract and retain employees and stay competitive. So very simply, why do we need to do this? You know, we talked about people not saving, and we need to find ways for them to save. So why does AARP really want to do this, and what's it all about? Considering that, you know, you've heard me talk about, and yes, the 345,000 AARP members across the state strongly support this, but many of them are already retired. But the idea is we really need to make sure that all retirees, when they retire, have means instead of needs. Thank you very much for allowing me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gold. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 777. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Don Darrell Loop, Vice Chair Orenshaw, members of the committee. I did email my comments earlier. I apologize if that's redundant. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to stay on and testify. For the record, my name is Ben Innes. That is Beniness, and I am a graduate student at UNR here in support of Senate Bill 200. And I want to thank Senator Harris for bringing this exciting and very important bill forward. Every Nevadan should have access to a simple and secure retirement account that makes it easy to save. Speaking personally as a student, I face overwhelming and frightening amounts of student debt. As part of a new generation entering an uncertain workforce, hoping to buy a home or consider saving for retirement seem like luxuries that are all but out of reach. I believe these are not luxuries, however. Senate Bill 200 can create stability and avoid the looming retirement crisis that hangs over Nevadans. No retiree should live in poverty and struggle to pay for essential needs like rent, utilities, or medicine. In the current landscape, too many Nevadans go underserved without retirement protections, including women, people of color, and an increasing number of gig workers. Senate Bill 200 will help provide security for individuals, families, and our communities. With all of the financial pressures facing Nevadans today, an easy and safe way to save money for retirement will help put people back in charge of their financial future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 419. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Chair Don Darrell Loop, and members of the committee. Again, my name is Benjamin Chalmers. That's BenJaminChallinor, and I am the Policy Director for Faith in Action Nevada. And in the interest of time, I will submit my full written comments to the committee online. But I do want to say that we are in support of SB 200 and thank Senator Harris for bringing this bill. Speaking on a personal level, my father has reached retirement age, and because of none of his jobs providing an employer-based retirement program, he is still working currently a full-time job while still using his, while still receiving Social Security. And my mother, although she hasn't reached retirement age, will most likely have to do the same. Currently, the communities of color are disproportionately affected by not having an employer-based retirement program, and this will increase those opportunities to make sure that they're able to have a better retirement and actually a reality of retirement. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 646. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last three digits of 646. We can see you are unmuted. You are free to begin speaking.
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Sequila Ankertok, Sequila Angkratok. I'm a bachelor's level social work student from University of Nevada, Reno. I also speak to you as a person of color and a new mother. I'm calling in support of SB 200, public retirement, because I want to see myself, my fellow students, and other young people in the community, including my own daughter, have opportunity to accrue savings so that they deeply need in the latter stages of our lives, no matter what type of job they maintain. From a social work perspective, I have great concern that those who are impacted most by jobs without benefits, like automatic IRA savings, I'm concerned about access, particularly for those of intersectionally low income, women, persons of color, and other historically disproportionately impacted communities. Many Nevadans do not have the liberty to think about and invest in their futures when they are struggling to make ends meet. Many, especially those in low income situations, are not financially educated about or have resources to invest individually in IRAs when retirement through their jobs is not offered. I myself have family members who have not had opportunity to accrue significant retirement, and I myself feel the burden to find a way to support them in the upcoming years. This impacts not only individuals, but whole families and communities. All Nevadans deserve the right to plan for a stable tomorrow. Again, I'm asking that you please support public retirement availability through SB 200. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
If you recently just joined us, we are currently in support of SB 200. To testify in support, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits of 261, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair Dondero Loop and members of the committee. My name is Jillian Block, GILLIAN BLOCK, and I am speaking on behalf of the Nevada Coalition of Legal Service Providers in support of Senate Bill 200 today. The legal service providers represent low-income Nevadans and bridge the gap of unmet legal need in the state. Nevada has a persistently large population of people living at or below the federal poverty level, and employer-sponsored retirement plans can help low-wage employees save money and build wealth, which in turn promotes financial stability and may help people remain housed, avoid predatory lending, and close the access to justice gap. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 199. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. This is Tess Opferman, that's OPFERMAN, speaking on behalf of the Nevada Women's Lobby. I know it's late, so I will keep my comments very short. I just want to echo what everyone before me has said and ensure that our seniors have some sort of retirement plan and opportunities so that they can retire at that age. Thank you very much for your time this evening, and thank you for hearing this bill.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 821. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, Chair and Committee. My name is Shane, S-H-A-N-E, Piccinini, P-I-C-C-I-N-I-N-I, and I represent the Food Bank of Northern Nevada. And I want to echo every comment that was before me and just want to say that this is exactly the kind of tool in the box that is required for the clients that we serve. A lot of them are in jobs that don't have any form of an employer-sponsored savings account. So thank you so very much for bringing this bill forward, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
We are currently in support of SB 200. To testify in support, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no more callers left in support at this time.
Thank you very much. We'll go to opposition.
To testify in opposition of SB 200, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 114, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Greetings, Chair, members of the committee. Amber Stidham, that's S-T-I-D-H-A-M, testifying on behalf of the Henderson Chamber. I want to start by saying I appreciate Senator Harris and all the hard work invested in bringing the bill forward. Respectfully, though, we are opposed. Certainly, we can appreciate the desire to address the issue that many Nevadans and Americans are not saving enough for a secure retirement, which I also recognize has a very real financial impact on the state and increased social assistance spending, which puts a strain on the state budget. Given the range of possible approaches the legislature could take in addressing this issue, we would like to provide a couple of brief comments. One is that employer-based and independent retirement programs are already widely in existence. We recognize that employers, typically from 10 to 15 or more employees, tend to provide some sort of retirement program, many with employer matching programs. And for the most part, that's because they do have the staff and financial resources to provide such programs. And we recognize that it's possible this bill is geared to reach out to those employees who may work for smaller organizations or are lower income earners. In the case of very small businesses, in our experience, oftentimes the choice of providing a plan like these is challenging due to the lack of financial literacy by some of our employers in this particular area, or the added burden of administering a plan, which there would still be administration of a plan even with this proposal on their end. And when there is an employer plan in place, especially in the case of lower income earners, some non-participation is often due to a lack of financial resources, not a lack of alternatives to save. And to that end, there are many institutions providing retirement savings programs designed specifically for individual savers. We would instead prefer an approach that involves that the state works together with the existing diverse and statewide private sector retirement systems as a facilitator and an educator to encourage, without requiring, businesses to adopt retirement plans and employees to save for their own retirement. And we really do believe that the legislature has a unique opportunity to help bridge these gaps, helping working Nevadans while supporting private sector businesses by using the resources that you have to bring together employers, financial service providers, and employees. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 300, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last 3 digits of 300, please press star 6 now to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Michael Hillerby, last name Hilllerby, on behalf of the American Council of Life Insurers. I want to first thank Senator Harris for meeting with me last week and her commitment to the financial security of Nevadans. The primary mission of ACLI and its 280 member companies is helping people achieve financial and retirement security. You have in the packet for the committee a letter from us, and I'll be brief because I know the hour is late. We believe there are better options for Nevada workers and employers than the plan outlined in SB 200. Those options would allow employers to provide matching contributions and help workers save even more for retirement. Thanks to the passage of the Federal Secure Act, fully ERISA-compliant plans with all the accompanying protections and tax advantages for workers and employers are now widely available. The state-run plans have proven to be more expensive and slower to achieve their goals than projected. Senator Neal asked a very important question about potentially partnering with states whose programs are millions of dollars over budget in state general funds. I want to thank Barry Gold and AARP for submitting the poll as well. While it was done prior to the Secure Act, it asked the right question, and that employers would like to find access to simple plans. Those simple, inexpensive plans are now widely available. They provide better benefits and don't require employers to deal with complicated ERISA and tax laws. Thanks to groups like the Las Vegas Chamber, many more options are available that are easy for both employees and employers to navigate. Thank you for your time and attention and the work you do on behalf of all Nevadans.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 781. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. Nick Vanderpool, NICK-VANDERPOEL, with Capital Partners, calling today on the Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce. The Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce understands that Senator Harris would like to see every employer mandate that employees save money in a retirement account with an opt-out provision if they elect not to put aside money. And we appreciate Senator Harris taking the time to meet with us and discuss this very topic. This is well-intentioned, but puts government squarely in business of running a business, competing for employees, their talents, and making efforts to retain them. This bill will severely hamper the work of financial advisors, banking institutions, and disincentivize potential clients from seeking professional advice regarding their money. This bill would require all businesses to initiate or upgrade their business software to include an auto-enrollment feature that would have to track minimum, maximum, and even external IRA contributions. This is not a feature included in most business software, even with the 401k. A system can't track any contributions made through a prior employer. As a result of this bill, all Nevada businesses, while making efforts to recover from the pandemic, would be forced to purchase or invest in software and maintain records, including the opt-out written acknowledgement forms that a majority of young employers may wish to complete. The Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce already has an association 401k plan that is available to over 90,000 employees working for its 2,000 plus members. We respectfully urge that current resources for saving money and increased education regarding the value of retirement savings be practiced rather than creating another agency. And even though we know understand it's contracted to oversee financial preferences of Nevada citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 407. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Broadcast Center. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. This is Randy Thompson, RANDI-THOMPSON, on behalf of NFIB, National Federation of Independent Business, the only statewide organization primarily serving small business. We definitely appreciate the intent of this bill, and it's the second time it's been around. I definitely appreciate working with Mr. Gold for the past 5 years to try to figure out how we can encourage, especially low-wage earners, to save for retirement. But not only representing small business statewide, I am personally a small business owner, and as what Mr. Vanderpool just talked about, only 20% of small employers use a payroll service. So most of us use QuickBooks, and this would be creating a really challenge for small businesses to manage a payroll system and add in this element. But I also have to say that as a small business owner myself, you have to understand the turnover in small business is incredibly high. My husband and I have owned a prenatal imaging studio for about a year and a half, and we've already turned over our 5-person staff twice. And this is not uncommon. A better option for small business is to help their employees start a self-directed IRA. And that is frankly what we have done for our employees. But we also now have, after 2019, and as Mr. Hillary talked about, the change in ERISA, the Chamber of Commerce in Vegas and Reno and other areas are offering these small businesses this kind of option. As Mr. Gold has polled his members, I have too, and our results are very staggering. That 55% of our small business owners say they cannot and will not and do not want small businesses to be part of a state-run retirement service. I have provided testimony for the record, and it will be up, I hope, on Nellis, but I did send it to all the members of the committee. I thank you, Chairman, for hearing this bill. I thank Senator Harris for bringing it, but we do stay opposed to this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
We are currently in opposition of SB 200. To testify in opposition, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no more callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much. We'll go to neutral, please.
To testify neutral on SB 200, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, to testify neutral on SB 200, please press star 9 now. Chair, you have no callers neutral at this time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, broadcasting. And with that, Senator Harris, any closing remarks?
Actually, I do, Chair Loop. I think there are a couple of points that were made in some of the opposition testimony that I think it's important for the committee to hear some of the facts on. And so if you don't mind, with your permission, I'd like to invite Ms. Eccles to address the piece about software and cost to business, and if she could as well, maybe a bit about the cost to the state and whether they're upside down to administer the program. Ms. Eccles?
Sure. Thank you, Senator. Happy to very quickly address some of those comments. And I certainly appreciate the concerns coming from different business organizations and community groups. We work very closely with a number of the associations in our state, including our state chamber, local chambers, Retail Merchants Association, a number of those groups. So just very quickly to touch on some of the comments related to employer responsibilities, we certainly do not expect any of our employers to take on the responsibility of tracking employee participation, monitoring employee contributions. All of that is work that is handled by the program. And frankly, we work directly with our financial services partner, so a private sector firm that offers retirement programs already to a number of employers. So it is the firm itself that actually is tracking contributions for workers. They set within their software note where if anyone were to hit a maximum contribution amount for an IRA, that's turned off. It's certainly not something employers have to track. In addition to that, the way that our program works, employers log into their portal, and it's the system in the portal, again, the program that tracks who's opting in and who's opting out. So on any day, if you're running your payroll and you do that, say, twice monthly, you log in on the 13th to run payroll for the 15th, you see the list of individual employees who are in the program and current, you put in their contribution amounts and you hit submit. Obviously, it's more complicated than that. Different employers use different payroll systems, but I certainly want to make sure it's noted that the expectation should never be on the employer to handle and track those particular features. In addition to that, I can say that certainly with Illinois' program and also with the servicer that manages Oregon and California, we are very aware of the fact that employers use a whole host of different payroll providers and that QuickBooks and a number of others are certainly utilized by smaller employers. And I would say the work and the coordination with payroll providers, as well as entities that offer payroll software, all of that is really something that's progressing and moving in the space. I think, the important thing for us is we can't help people save if we have a program that's too complicated for the employer. So certainly the focus on limiting any of that role is something that takes place already in Illinois, and I would assume would be the same for all of you. The final piece I would just comment on really quickly, should there be any clarity, I can't speak for other states, but when looking at state budgets and money, we are certainly not over any amount that has been budgeted in Illinois. These programs, very similar to 529 programs, will be self-sustaining. They're very new right now. They're in their infancy. So we did receive some startup money from our state. For Illinois, that's a loan that we'll pay back. But ultimately, the fees for the program are fees on savers, not on employers. And those ultimately will be the fees that sustain the program over time. So just wanted to make sure, at least in terms of Illinois, we certainly aren't underwater or at some sort of unexpected amount for the administrative costs.
Thank you, Ms. Eccles. Two last points, and then I promise I'll let you all go. One, if an employer already has a plan in place, nothing changes with this bill. Number two, nothing prevents employers from choosing another option if they feel that it is better suited for them and for their employees. Thank you, Chair Dondera Loop, and thank you, committee.
Senator Harris, if I could jump in and just make a couple of quick comments in closing. I know time is tight.
That would be up to the chair, Ms. Ekman.
I don't know who's talking. I'm sorry.
This is Jessica Ekman with the AARP.
I do not see you. Where? Oh, there you are. Okay, I'm sorry. Jessica, if you can make it really, really short because we all have another meeting to get to tonight.
Very, very brief. Thank you so much. I just wanted to comment on a couple of quick things. So while AARP was supportive of the Secure Act at the federal level, it's not nearly enough on its own to close that savings gap that we've been talking about. We see it as a complement to state efforts in this area and believe strongly that SB 200 is not only an important but a critical step in helping workers save their own money for retirement. And additionally, as previously mentioned, our polling shows that small businesses are eager to have access to this kind of program, and that tracks with what we've seen in other states and small business owners that we've worked with closely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Broadcasting, do you see anybody waiting on the line with the last three numbers of 264? They've been waiting like...
No, Chair. I have 6 callers in the queue, and none of them have those last digits.
Okay, if you see 264 come in, would you please let me know? They've been on the call for like 4 hours waiting for the testimony, and they couldn't get through for some reason. Anyway,
yes, Chair, I will work on that.
Thank you very much. And while we're waiting for that, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 200. Thank you, Senator Harris, for all your testimony and your experts. And we will go to public comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. To speak in public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you'd like to speak in public comment. Oh, I see your caller now. Chair, please hold.
Thank you.
If you would like to speak in public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 264. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last 3 digits of 264, please press *6 now to unmute yourself. Thank you. Please begin.
Good evening, Chair Dondera Loop and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Hugh Anderson, Hughhanderson. I'm Managing Director for High Tower Las Vegas and Chair of the Vegas Chamber's Government Affairs Committee. I want to thank the bill sponsor for the conversations that we've had on this bill, and I appreciate the Senator's passion on the issue, and we agree that more Nevadans need to save for retirement. However, the Vegas Chamber is opposed to Senate Bill 200 because the private sector already offers retirement savings programs. Groups like the Vegas Chamber are now allowed by federal guidelines to offer 401k programs to employers and employees. Other chambers of commerce across the state, as you've heard, are able to offer similar services to their members. The Chamber believes if the private sector is providing the service, then government should not offer the same service. We're also concerned that the program would be built on the premise of being an opt-out and not an opt-in for employees. We believe that employees should utilize retirement programs made available to them by their employers, and if one is not offered, there are numerous private sector options for them to choose from. Additionally, as a certified financial planner, I can assert firsthand that the cohort this bill aims to assist does not have sufficient savings to meet emergencies, let alone save for retirement. Recent reports indicate the average person does not have $400 saved for an emergency. An individual needs to correct that shortfall before putting funds in retirement vehicles that are subject to taxes and penalties should the money be needed in the event of such an emergency. Any participation in a retirement savings plan should be an opt-in as the default option for employees. We do believe that the best way to increase Nevadans' participation in 401ks and other retirement savings programs is expansion of financial literacy education programs and stronger job and career security. I work with extraordinary professionals who do wonders in that space. We would encourage the state to invest in education resources and programs. Thank you, Chair Dondera Loop and members of the committee for your time.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your patience as we work through the broadcasting connection. Additional public testimony?
Yes, Chair. Caller with the last three digits of 056, please press, oh, I'm sorry. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Yes, this is Greg Clemenson, GREG-CLEMENSEN. I apologize. I did try to get in through when we're in the opposition section. For some reason, I wasn't recognized, but I'll make this short. I am a licensed insurance broker here in Nevada, and I am speaking on behalf of my professional organization, the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors, which I am the state government chairs, government relations chairman. I just want to reiterate everything that my colleagues have said in opposition to this bill, and also to point out that this is potentially an expensive proposition and administration of these private plans, and that this money might be better used to educate the public in saving for their retirement, public outreach, and that sort of thing, and to use the resources that are already available in the private sector through our members and through banks and through the provisions of the Secure Act. Thanks again for permitting us to make the comments.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Chair, you have no more callers at this time.
Thank you very much. With that, I believe that we are done with our meeting. Thank you, broadcasting and staff, for hanging in there with us. Thank you to all the committee members and our bill testifiers. And with that, I'll close the meeting and we will adjourn. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir, for hanging in there.
Good night.
Good night.